What's going on, Wolfpack? We got another great episode 4 tonight of the Wolfpack Gaming Podcast. I got a special guest with me tonight. I'm really excited to talk to him, Crispy Bomb. I've listened to this gentleman for a little over a year. Discovered him on the Boom Show, and Crispy, how you doing tonight, sir?
Oh man, world premiere. Yeah, let's go. I'm doing well. Not seeing my team playing in the Super Bowl is become a problem. So I'm looking forward to the conversation because I have to forget that. But at the end of the day, I kind of just met you, but at the same time, I think we're gonna have a great conversation, and that's really what matters.
Absolutely, Crispy. Thank you so much for agreeing to be here tonight, man. And I look forward to hearing all about your gaming background, man. I like I was mentioning in the green room, I do like to put these shows together. They're kind of for me more than they are for my audience and channel. But I want to get to know Crispy, all about your background when it comes to your gaming history, how you discovered gaming, how it's enamored you, your life. If for someone that's dedicated like yourself to always be on a show weekly covering the video game industry, it must mean that it made an impact. And definitely I want to get into that. Crispy, let's also talk about a little bit of Gears, man. We'll get into that a little bit. I put together a little package for you there of some Gears gameplay that's going to be playing in the background, and also we'll get your thoughts on the recent mega bombs that have dropped, Crispy. I mean, it's been only a month and change, and it feels like a year's worth of news has dropped, man. So we're definitely going to get into that, brother. But before anything, I got a couple of fun questions I want to ask you. First of all, Crispy, what are you drinking tonight, man?
It's from Stratford, Connecticut. It's a double IPA. The company's called Two Roads, and the beer is called Road to Ruin, and it's
Oh,
an 8% alcohol. It's literally going to take me like two or three, and I mean we're going to be having some fun, buddy. So, it's one of those
that's what I'm
things.
talking about, dude.
That's one of those things. Like I love a really good beer, but I have to be careful, because it really it affects your joints. A lot of people don't realize this. Like when you have really good beer all the time, it actually, like, I have a disease called gout, so I
Oh,
have to be
okay.
very very careful how much I consume of these high yeast, higher alcohol beers. So it's like,
Wow. Okay.
I drink Miller Lite, but I do love the taste of these, so I just end
I
up
got you.
going back. But
Well, sorry, dude. Sorry, I didn't know that you suffer from that, brother. But I guess if you indulge every now and then, it's that rule that says it's all about the quantity, and if you take small portions here and there, I'm sure you can keep that under control.
oh, absolutely, yeah. No, I wouldn't put myself through that pain, drinking this right now. So, you know,
For sure.
I'm good with that.
For sure, brother. Me myself, I'm drinking a little single malt whiskey I picked up yesterday. I was went to the liquor store with the wife. She took me to a place that she's been to before to get me something for my birthday, but it's the first time I went with her. And the one of the gentlemen there recommended the Del More, and it's pretty nice, man. Goes down pretty smooth. It's about 12, it's aged at 12 years, so it goes down smooth, dude. So we're definitely both drinking buddies here tonight, man. Let's pull up a chair and let's get right into it, Crispy. So let's get into it. Let's get into it like this, Crispy. When going into your background, right? Obviously, like I mentioned in the beginning, gaming, for someone to be covering gaming on a weekly basis like yourself on various shows, okay, that means that gaming is pretty much part of your life. I can imagine that you keep up with the Joneses, with the headlines, with everything that comes out on a daily basis. So what's your earliest memory of gaming? Like talk to me about that, Crispy. Little Crispy. Let's go back to Little Crispy now. Talk to me about those days.
Oh man, actually, it's pretty crazy because I do remember the first game I ever played, and that was Pac-Man, but it was on the tabletop.
Oh, okay.
Um, I I I remember the place. I remember that I played it, it must have been like 4 or 3 years old, something like that. Like,
Wow.
it's one of those things like what parents do now. They just put the cell phone or the tablet in front of the kid and just let them play,
Yeah.
age appropriate games. But
Right. Right.
and they're learning. I'm not sitting here and acting like it's a bad thing. So my parents just would throw me in front of this cabinet. It's like waist high. It's like knee high at me at being 6'1". You know what I mean? So and I would just sit there and it was horrible then. Like I would cry, like I would die and cry, and it was funny. But my
you had
parents would like
you had to
they were
figure it out.
never my parents were never engaged enough with me to actually
Hmm.
care. That's my concern even with society now. It's very, like, do this, you're not crying and you're occupied. There you go. And I just feel that, you know, growing up that way because my parents were always into something else, and like it was like basically I was being dragged along.
Okay.
It was a little tough. I'm not saying my parents were bad to me, especially during that age. They weren't. You know what I mean? They gave me the world, it felt like, but as I got older, it was like, work for this, work for that, and that's fine. I'm cool with that. Like I was mowing the lawn. Hey, here's $10. Hey, do this. Hey, do that. You know what I mean? Like it was one of those things. Like they would, or if I asked, they would say, "Hey, here's $5 or something." And back in the '90s, early '90s, that was a lot of money then. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
You
Yeah.
get
Especially for
$5.
arcades.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that's where I'm kind of getting into. I kind of really got into the arcades. Like I remember a birthday party. It was Fun World. That's what it was called up here, and
Okay.
they had like a little mini roller coaster and all these crazy things. But they had the X-Men game, and the
Oh, okay.
X-Men. I don't remember who developed it or whatever, but I mean, my God, back then, playing with 4 other people and really having different characters that did totally different things was
Were you a Wolverine
so
guy?
new. No, I was actually oh, what the hell is his name? Jesus, I'm having a brain fart right now.
That's all right. Is it Cyclops, Colossus? I think you can
No,
pick
it's
a Nightcrawler. I think is in there too.
Nightcrawler. That's who it was.
There you go.
Nightcrawler.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. And I was gonna say night, and I'm like, I know it's night, but I forgot.
You're
Nightcrawler,
close.
yeah. Because he would teleport,
Yeah.
which was kind of wild. So as I went through this period in time, I was like, hey, I love gaming. Like I can already tell. You know what I mean? Like as a
Yeah. You were
kid,
like drawn to it.
I was like, at that point, I was like 8 years old, and then we go to my aunt's, and I'm like Mr. Fix Them, trying to help things and do things, and my cousin, and I read something in like a Game Informer or something really old like that, and I read something that you have to blow in the cartridge on an NES. You know what I mean? And I
Yeah.
like that literally stuck in my head. And so my cousin busts out an NES that she's like, she's gonna get the SNES. And
Oh,
she's
okay.
like, can you get this to work? Because every time I try, and so I started blowing, and we started playing games for hours. You know what I mean? Like Super Mario, the original, and like all this other stuff. And she's like, you know what? You can have this. And so that was my first console. It was technically a hand-me-down, but
Did
even at that
she?
time, it
Yeah.
was
Did she give
crazy.
you the? Did she give you the gun as well in Duck Hunt and Mario and all that? What games do
Yeah.
you
So I
remember
had I
playing
had
on there?
Mario and Duck Hunt. Um,
Okay.
Probably the most impactful game for me was playing Kirby's Dreamland.
Oh,
Um,
okay.
that game, because you could change into different characters and stuff like that, really, like, I was like, man, this is just cool. And it was hard. It was you had to go through a whole like 5-hour playthrough. You know what I mean? Like that's what people don't understand. Like, even like when they complain about roguelites and all that, dude, that's just games what we had back
E-
then. Like, you didn't
Every
have
game
a
was Dark
save
Souls,
point.
dude. Every game was
Yeah,
Dark Souls
dude.
back in the day.
So
So
like I'm one of them people, I look at that type of talk and I'm like, dude, you should have grown up when I grew up. Like,
Yeah.
and then I got the NES, and this is really like I got the NES and I couldn't get anything else. Like my family was not like, they weren't like, hey, like they had no clue what gaming was. They just weren't,
Hmm.
hating me for it. You know what I mean? Like they weren't like, no, you can't do that. Like, and like I bought my first TV myself, like with like birthday and Christmas money or something. Like
Do you
I've
think
grown
that
up.
do you think that it's that they saw it as a waste of time? Because a lot of there's a perception out there, right? And I've heard this from fellow gamers and friends and acquaintances myself, where I got a buddy that he'll want to play a few rounds with me on Call of Duty, and his wife will be in the background, kind of saying that why are you wasting your time with that and all that. So I've always felt that gaming has a stigma that it's kiddish and if it's just a waste of time. And what people I guess haven't realized is that it's a form of entertainment. It's no different than watching a movie or a TV show. Do you think that that's what it was, that your family might have seen it kind of like as a waste of time or as a kid's toy, something like that?
Absolutely. And I was also huge in the movies as well. I was actually the kid that would hide but always want to see the scary movie. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, you know, um, you know, freaking Werewolves in London and like weird like Dracula, like the OG Draculas. Like even if it was in black and white, I'd watch the Munsters. You know what I mean?
Gotcha.
Like, and sometimes
Yeah.
and people, like old school stuff that my parents like introduced to me, but it was still entertaining even for my brain. You know what I mean? Like, and my brain was like,
Yeah.
hey, I want to go and play that. But at that time, it was like developing. And it's like I look at it now and I'm like, people are so sensitive. You know what I mean? Like,
Oh yeah.
it's almost like, if you disagree, you have to bring a sensitiveness to it. You could just disagree. Like
Absolutely.
I grew up, like from 94 on, I was a Chiefs fan. I got a Sega Genesis then, and I played NFL. And back then, this was better than Madden. It was NFL 90, 93, 94, and 95. Those games were amazing for football. They were
Oh yeah.
so good. It was not, Madden was already out years before. They were so damn good. It was made by Sega Sports. They
Hmm.
were damn good. And that made me a Chiefs fan. And a lot of people don't realize that, it really stemmed from a video game. The reason why I'm such a diehard Chiefs fan, because no
Yeah.
matter how hard it's been for the past 20 something years, it has been, gravitating to where we're at now. And,
Yeah.
that's something that like, I look at gaming the same way. I would rather be the true fan and really push through things and really critique them when it's deserved, which a lot of people won't
Absolutely.
do. They won't do
Absolutely.
that. So
Yeah, I think that going back, because you said a lot, Crispy. Believe it or not, in the short so far, I've been keeping notes in my head here. You mentioned also, and we can get deeper into this, man, because I think that you definitely have great points to this. I think that these are topics that people shy away from, to be honest with you, because they're scared of how others will think about them or portray their kind of point of view when it comes to the way that things should be. And I mean, just I'm a father myself, right? I'm a father of a beautiful 6-year old. She's gonna be 7 in March. Once you become a father, the game changes. Where are you a father, Crispy? Just to ask you.
I am actually not. I'm now feel like a stepfather because my girlfriend has a son. He's in that like still melding age of like 14, and
Oh, okay. Okay.
it's still like, and he hasn't had a stable, I don't know, because you got to go where your mother, and
Yep.
unfortunately it just hasn't
Yep.
been stable. And I've been this stability, and I just hope to help him any way, shape, or form I can through life. Because I'll be honest with you, I mean, it's one of those things where you go and say, you know, she has a son, she doesn't want another kid. I deal with that. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? I'm not going to lose her because of that. And also, I look at the way society is right now, and I don't necessarily think that it's the
It's tough to
greatest
have
thing
kids.
to just,
Absolutely.
to willingly bring a child up right now. It just doesn't, it's not
I
logical,
gotcha.
especially in my, financial situation, stuff like that. It would be irresponsible in my thought. You know what I mean? And it's just like, I don't know if I'll ever get out of that. But at the same
Yeah.
time,
Yeah.
I
When it comes to a decision like that, Crispy, one of the things, because me and my wife, we're kind of on the same boat there. I do have a daughter. Me and my wife are not looking to have a kid anytime soon. Might adopt one day, depending on what happens. But one of the things that we talk about is kind of like you when you mention things like right now, society is very hard. It's one of those things that everyone will let you know, oh, but what do you mean? I mean, you're supposed to have, I mean, once you get married, you're supposed to do this and that. And I mean, I'm sorry to say it, there's never been a rule book written on any of this. People kind of figure out what's best for their life as they go along. And that's very admirable from someone like you to have a good head on your shoulders to understand the responsibility that brings. It's not, you're not adopting a puppy here. You know what I'm saying? It's a
no,
human being, and absolutely, if the means are not there where you can give them and provide, and the way that you really imagine that, and in the way that you want, then why would you even go through that trouble and just create bigger stresses and headaches in your life? So I agree with you 100% with that.
I mean, the stressing out and all that. I mean, that's a part of life. I mean, I'm not sitting here acting like, it's not something that can happen. It just, in my 34 years of existence, it hasn't happened to me. And, it's one of those things like, it's almost meant to be now. It feels like I'm not saying, like if you talked to me 10 years ago, I was dead set on it. But,
Yeah,
at this point in my life and the way, like, I feel like it's not the right time. And maybe in 10 years it might be wrong and I'm still capable of doing that. You know what I mean? Like it's
absolutely.
still it still can absolutely happen and I can be, just as good as father, if not better. But also the society, the way people can come at you in so many different ways now scares me. It really does.
Yeah.
It makes me feel like I tread lines because I'm not afraid. And I
I
feel
mean, you
like,
can't be. You got to say what you mean and mean what you say. I mean that's what makes you crispy. That's what makes you unique and different
well,
than
that's where the
anyone
crispy
else.
truth comes from. I mean, let's be honest. It's one
Yeah,
of those things like I'm more afraid of not saying it than saying it. If you don't understand what I'm saying, like it's pretty simple. If I
I think
don't
I do.
say it, I'm going to eat myself alive.
I
You know
got
what
you.
I'm saying? And
Yeah,
I'm also respectful to people. I try to be, at least. Like I'm not sitting there judging somebody just on, their content or this or that, because I get it. Like you might be looking that for money or something like that. But I feel like society now just gravitates towards these people that are looking for money, that are just trying to, take something and spin the negative. Like,
absolutely.
how bad is it that these PlayStation centric podcasts talk about Xbox more? That's pretty ridiculous. I'm just
Yeah,
saying it.
yeah.
You know what I mean?
They kind of grown their fan base to bash, the other console and the other fans, and you kind of scratch your head because, if something happens that it's big news, even if you're not level headed, I think that a lot of the shows that you're involved with, Crispy, all of them, in fact, all of you. That on those panels are very level headed. You guys can kind of see both ways. You guys call a spade for a spade. I mean, when Microsoft fucks up, you guys are the first ones to call him out. And that's always important, right? But when you listen to some of these shows like I have, right? And it's just these guys are just talking pure shit, and it's like, what the fuck are you guys talking about? Like you guys are not making any logical sense in that's your world that you're living in, because you guys have completely made this narrative up, and it's really sad, dude. And I know exactly where you're coming from, because you're right. And I think that someone like boom, right? When I've heard him talking one-on-one on other podcasts, and he started podcasting around the time that the Xbox One was getting bashed. I think that a lot of people saw that as an opportunity to jump on YouTube and start bashing the Xbox because it was a cool thing to do. And they haven't grown out of that. They haven't matured yet. And it's kind of like they're scared that if they, give just a little bit of credit to Xbox as a console or as a brand, they're going to lose their fan base, and they're going to get called out for the frauds they are. And I know exactly what you're talking about.
You do realize, I mean, this is the weird thing. I do not have my own pod. Like what you're doing right now, I envy. You understand what I'm saying? Like you're hosting me. Like this is, I've never hosted my own. Okay. And I look at the amount of followers I have, and yes, it's because of like certain things. Like one panel member be like, follow this person, this person, this person, and you could, enter a chance to win, Red Dead Redemption 2. That was a big, huge part of the followers I've ever gotten. Like it was like 500-600 people. But after that, it's all been just me being on other podcasts, thanks to, somebody like you, and talking and expressing my feelings and speaking my truth. That's where crispy truth comes from. You know what I mean?
Gotcha.
I speak my truth. And that's why I say, speak your truth. Like when I say that to somebody, that's a compliment. You know what I mean? Like I might not agree with it, but at the same time, I can't just say, this is irrelevant. No. And I might be right after, be like, yeah, well, you could, think about this part. And then some people will respond and get hateful and very angry, or some people will be like, well, you got a point. So you speak your truth. You know what I mean? And it's one of those things like, these hostile podcasts that still exist, they don't get the actual conversation that needs to be had.
Yeah.
And, we look at it this way. You could bring up, I love single player. And I think Sony is the greatest single player of all time. And I will agree with you.
Absolutely.
But what about multiplayer? And since the basically the middle of PS3 era, they basically got rid of multiplayer, and they didn't have any focus on that whatsoever.
Mm-hmm.
And, Killzone, Shadowfall, Resistance, all these games that had multiplayer with the single player, they died out and they just didn't care. But Xbox has been sitting here saying, no, we're still going to do this. Yes, we have developed this big thing, but back then it was like I saw Gears and I said, man, this game is just one of a kind. And the funniest part is it is still one of a kind.
That's true.
It is still one game. I'll tell you right now, like, if I get off this podcast, if I'm playing the game, I'm probably starting out with 2v2, Nashers only, and wall bouncing and strafing and just doing, all kind of bot walking, whatever it may be, to try to win the game. You know what I mean? And these things, these terms are still kind of only Gears only.
That's true. Yeah, you're right.
If you think about it, with the Call of Duties, the CSGOs, all these things, these are all first person. The best IP Xbox still has is Gears. Because once somebody's hooked, they are hooked. And they understand the game and they know how to play it. And they are just hooked on it for the rest of their life. There's nothing else. You know what I mean? Like the closest was like Army of Two, and there was something that
Yeah. After Gears
Division,
Division,
you could say, like, it's cover based. It's but it doesn't have the snappiness. You know what I'm saying? It doesn't have that gravitas. That's like, man, this is the greatest game I've ever played. And I mean, even in Gears 5, I know it wasn't what I expected. Like, they really screwed up in the beginning. And I thought that's why I was pissed at Halo, because they basically did the same thing when Gears 5 came out. And Gears 5 came out as basically the placeholder for Game Pass, which clearly Game Pass is still here, so it must have been successful. I'm just saying, like, these are the things I think about. You got to remember, I grew up living up the street from a Blockbuster, and I wouldn't get $60 from my parents. I would get $5, and I'd go rent a game.
Yeah. Hey, I'm gonna rent you
3 days with it.
One game. Exactly. And in those 3 days, you have to play the shit out of it because you got to try to beat it as best as you can. And Crispy, we'll get into Gears in a little bit, okay? Because I really want to. I've always heard that you've always loved Gears, and I think I understand why. I mean, you kind of portrayed that in a couple of sentences there. But we're gonna get a little bit deeper into that in a little bit. But before we go on, let's get back to your gaming history, Crispy, and let's get back to a couple of more things that you said before I kind of derailed your thought process there. We mentioned the you grew up, with your parents and stuff like that, not really seeing that gaming was a form of entertainment, but more kind of as a waste of time, kind of like, hey, you could be doing something better with your time. So let's move on now, Crispy, to now you're, talk to me about, those years where gaming was where you started to afford your own consoles and stuff like that. Talk to me about those years.
Well, that's tough to say because, I mean, really to say I afforded a console myself, I didn't afford it. I wanted it. And that's a little strange to say, but, like I said, like Sega Genesis, it came down to, I was like, do I want a Super Nintendo? Do I want a Sega Genesis? And it really came down to the commercials.
Yeah, there you go. I was gonna go there. Did you buy into the all the Sega hype that they were building up? Saying that, hey, Sega's for the cool kids. If you're still playing Nintendo, I don't know what you're doing.
Yeah, well, I was a middle schooler, so at that point in time, it was Sega do what Nintendo don't. And that literally, like, and then it was always like Sega, you know what I mean? And I was like, man, like, dude, like they kept going, and I really at the time I was still into sports, like even more than I ever have been, you know what I mean? Like actually playing them and everything else, like. So like they brought out a lot of sports games. They brought out, Streets of Rage, especially during my time. Streets of Rage 2 was huge. You know what I mean? And it's one of those things where I'm like, man, I gotta have this console. And luckily, because my birthday and Christmas are like 3 days apart, it was like, my parents, my uncles, and whatever, and my aunts were just like, okay, let's just give him the system and he'll be happy. And sure enough, I was, probably as far as like, not being a shooter or a brawler or anything like that, probably the most impactful game for me was Pitfall 2. It wasn't called 2. It was something else, but it was completely different from the original Pitfall, which I played at my doctor's office, by the way, for the first time. My doctor had the OG Nintendo cabinet that had Super Mario 1, 2, and 3. It had Pitfall, the OG Pitfall, and everything else. And it was wild because I go and play this game, and you could like you throw your whip, and you can swing it across and all this crazy stuff. And I was like, man, this is crazy. And keep in mind, this is after I played Kirby, and you could float in the air and then swallow somebody up. So it wasn't like it wasn't like I haven't seen this before, but I'm like, man, the traversal is just amazing. And I played the hell out of that game. I beat it probably like 5 times. And then, like I started playing like, NFL 94, 95, and I really got into that. And then, all of a sudden, like I'm at Blockbuster and I'm like, well, where's the Sega games? And I'm like, oh, wait, what's this Sega Saturn? What's this? You know what I mean? And this is because Sega CD was an attachment. There were games for it, but you didn't know how to get it. That's what a lot of people had the trouble. This is before the internet. Like, so I'm like, what's this Sega CD? I was like, what the frick is a CD? Like, I'm listening to tapes. I'm recording like mixtapes on my recorder. It was basically like Home Alone status type thing. You know what I mean? Like, I was recording like, music from that. And I'm like, what is this CD thing? And
Yeah.
then, my aunt went and bought me a Gateway 2000 PC, and I actually became a
Oh,
PC gamer for a period of time.
I remember those gateways. They had like commercials with cows and shit on them. I think I remember those.
But eventually, so like once in a while, I'm like, hey, I got the Saturn, by the way, which is a big, big mistake, horrible mistake. And
They had some good fighters on there, man. They had Marvel versus I think X-Men versus Street Fighter, the arcade perfect port of that, by the way, when the PlayStation, that port was a little janky, dude, on that PS1.
I'll tell you right now, the only reason why I say this is because literally when PlayStation came out, and I just got the Saturn, by the way, it wasn't like I was like, like looking at, and this is probably where like investment and how I go about things is, this is part of it, is that I got the Saturn, and literally after the PlayStation, the OG PS1 was launched, it had as many games as the Saturn
Wow.
on the wall. I'm just looking at what's in front of me, and it had
Yeah.
basically every game that was on Sega except like the Sega sports titles and stuff like that. But it had, Virtual Fighter, which I loved. I mean, I loved Virtual Fighter. Great game. Very like the 3D, what we have today. That's because of them. Like they
Yeah.
did such a phenomenal job with that game. But those type things, I look at it and I say, what did you do for me lately? And
Mm.
I get it. Like, and I'm not talking about exclusives. I'm just talking about games in general. Because at that point in time, some developers would choose to develop for a certain company. And at that time, it was much easier to develop for the PlayStation. Turn
That's
it
true.
around, turn
That's
it
true.
around 3 years later, I still have my Saturn, and I have maybe 25% more games. And the
Mm.
PlayStation is taking up the aisle and a half that's left over.
Yeah.
And I say, what am I doing? Because you got to remember, I'm sitting there, I'm like, I got to run a new game. And you get to like a month, 2 month period where there's no new game. And you say,
Mm-hmm.
what's happening here? Well, to be honest, they were ramping up for the Dreamcast to come out. Okay.
Yeah.
But at the same time, PlayStation's developing PlayStation 2. You look at it this way. Dreamcast was way far ahead. Okay, because they had the 56K dial-up, which would connect you to other people just like your PC if you had one.
Yeah, they also
But
pushed heavily on the marketing, dude. I remember those 99.99 commercials coming out when I used to watch wrestling, when I was watching football, when I was watching basketball. Anything that I would watch, that 99.99 commercial will come out, and that's really what sticks to my mind about the Dreamcast the most, to be honest.
well, they had good marketing, which they had for years, but
With the
you
Genesis, they
had
kind
you
of
still had
Mhm.
you had the peak of Blockbuster, okay? And you didn't have games. You just didn't have them. They were like I remember like a lot of people would ignore this game. The Black Hawk Down, based off the movie, was actually a really good game.
I don't remember that one.
It was such a good game. Um and that's where, like I played that game enough time. I've rented it enough. Like I should have bought it, but at the end of the day, like I still, if you look at it in hindsight, I played it for a couple of weeks and I paid like $15-20, and then that was it.
Yeah,
It might have been spread it out, but I still technically saved money.
right.
It's one of those things, like I look at that and I say, like, they had something like the console was so good. You know what I mean? Sega was so good for so long, but like Sony just blitzkrieged them. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
And
and
it's
let's be real though. I mean, the thing is with Sony, my perspective on PlayStation, right? As soon as they got dicked over by Nintendo, Crispy, they got on this mission, which mission accomplished on them, by the way. They got on this mission to just take gaming by storm, and they did such an excellent job marketing and targeting and creating targeting the correct audience, targeting the correct developers, taking exclusives away, which is still kind of a card that they play to this day, to their strengths. I do think that Sony kind of understood that in order to match or exceed Nintendo and Sega at the time, they really needed to get on the side of developers and gamers. That's kind of what was going to push them over the edge. And on the PS1, it was mission accomplished. I mean, when you got games like Resident Evil coming out, Final Fantasy VII, when you can secure that right now, if you talk to, the majority of gamers our age, Crispy, I think that Final Fantasy VII has a special place in their heart, whether they played it or not. Even if they didn't play it, they know about it, and they knew about it during the time.
Oh my God, it literally almost took my best friend from me. I'm not even playing right now.
I'm telling you, dude, I still remember to this day, one of the fondest memories that I have, of all of gaming, is the very first time that I was playing Resident Evil 1 on the original PlayStation at a friend's house. I didn't have the original PlayStation. My dad told me, you can only pick one. Which one do you want? The PS1 or the N64? I chose the N64 because I saw WCW versus the World or something like that, one of those wrestling games, and I basically chose the 64 over the PlayStation for that one game. Plus I knew I had access to a PS1 because I had a buddy a couple of doors down that had a PS1, and I got to experience all the PS1 greats anyways with him. But I remember the first time that I played Resident Evil, and it still sticks out, Crispy, when those dogs jumped through the window, dude. That shit was so badass back then, and it's still like if it just happened yesterday in my mind, man. And I think that to just round about where I'm going with this, it's Sony to this day, they're not my preferred platform. But I could talk all the shit I want about Xbox or PlayStation, Crispy, because the way I see it, brother, I've invested so much money into these ecosystems and into these platforms. I have a PS5. I have a PS3 still sitting there. I just bought Horizon. I just pre-ordered it. I bought Gran Turismo coming up. I know what I'm talking about. I'm not one of these guys that I don't even play the games and I'm just talking smack. I can legitimately say that PlayStation still has that as one of their strong suits, that they just know how to be in touch with that market of theirs, and they squeeze that lemon for every ounce it has, man. They're very good, like Nintendo in that way, if you know what I'm saying.
Well, I mean, Nintendo didn't have the console myself, but had so many friends that I spent so many like hours upon hours with, like each day at times. N64 was amazing. The controller was trash, but let's be honest, like you just eventually said, screw it. Like I'm not getting this experience anywhere else. And it was really the 4-player co-op type stuff, or 2v2 or something like that. Like these were things that really started me loving multiplayer more than anything else.
Yeah.
And, I look at it and like, going into the PlayStation 2, like playing SOCOM for the first time, playing Killzone for the first time, like these games, like, and keep in mind, like, I understand Halo was there, but it wasn't mainstream at that point in time. Like, yes, like, I get it. Like, it is probably the godfather of first-person shooters, in my opinion. Like, it is completely innovated the way people think about first-person shooters. So, you look at that. Xbox was not on my radar. Actually, Microsoft was the devil back then.
Okay? Yeah, me too.
Mm-hmm. All right. It was like, I can't believe that they would even, think about this. And I was like, I'm not going with this. I'm going with PlayStation.
Yeah. And when you saw the Duke, I remember seeing the Duke, and the first thing I thought, what the fuck are these people doing? Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's the very first thing I thought, dude.
Well, and then they came out with the S controller not long after, but that's them like smartening up. But
they did that for the Japanese audience, though.
So you look at that and keep in mind, like until 2007, 2008, Xbox was not on my radar. So we're talking
Mm-hmm.
5 years or more. I had my PlayStation 2. I was happy with it. And then we got into the new gen and I started paying attention a little more. And I'm like, man, like, these new consoles, they got to do something better, because like the games are horrible. I'm not going to sit here and bullshit. Like the multiplayer games, most of them were pretty bad. You know what I mean? So I'm like, and it's because of latency and all that other, hoopla that we like to talk about. But, the internet was not capable. And I heard DSL. That was the first thing I heard from Xbox. DSLs, and I was like, "What's DSL? I got a 56K. Like, what you talking about?"
Yeah, me too.
So I looked at him and I was like, "You crazy?" You know what I mean? And I ignored it. So there got to a period of time where I went to a friend's house. But keep in mind, he looks at me. He's like, "Dude, I'm having a party tonight, but it's a LAN party." I'm like, what the fuck's a LAN party? You know what I mean? I'm like, what are you talking about right now? It's like, no, we're gonna play Halo. I'm like, what's I've heard of Halo, but what do you mean? He's like, dude, we're gonna play like with different TVs, 2 people on each TV, like you could play up to 8 people. And I'm like,
You could do that?
I'm like, what? And he's like, yeah, dude, like right in front of it, like you just got to try not to look at the other person's screen. And I'm like, okay, I don't know what this is, but screw it. And keep in mind, I played Killzone and stuff online, and it was like I said, it was kind of brutal, but man, it
Mhm.
was smooth as butter. But I got my ass handed to me, got my absolute ass handed to me. So after getting my ass handed to me every time I picked up the controller, like 0-8, 1-10, like crazy, like just horrible. I'm like, I don't even know how to play this game. Like he would freaking, super jump over me and then shotgun me and he would just laugh. So
and then teabag you, right? You forgot about
so
that.
as yeah, oh yeah. So as people trickled out, and I'm gonna tell you, this is the origin story from Gears. Okay,
Okay.
people trickled out. So then he had like a few like really good friends. Like I keep in mind, I kind of just met him. It was just like we loved gaming and he knew it, so he just invited me. So we trickled down, and then he has his, and he's like, dude, like, like he can't compete. Like, I can't play this game with you. Like one of his friends, you know what I mean? And he's like, well, how about we do this? And he pulls up Gears, like, pushes the freaking the whole freaking shit right in his face. And he's like, open it up and we'll play it. And so the dude opens it up and he's like, all right, let's do it. And
So
we
you're talking
played
about the original Gears, right? On Xbox
yeah,
360.
yeah.
Did you even know about the game before that moment, or did
No.
this game completely?
Well,
So you didn't see the
I
marketing or
did
anything like that?
I did see the one trailer. I fucking I can't remember right now.
The Mad World.
Yes, yeah. Exactly.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah, I saw Mad World and I was like, what's this? But I don't know, caught in my ways. You know what I mean? Like, I mean, at that
Yeah.
time, Tony Hawks were coming out. Like, dude, I was playing all kinds of games. Like, Gauntlet Dark Legacy came out for the PS2, and I was like, oh my God, this is amazing. And I would
Yeah.
play
And
that all the time. Like, dude, I beat
so
that
you were
game like
you were kind of
5-6
you
times.
so you were kind of enamored in the PlayStation ecosystem with the PS2, and I mean they were delivering bangers, man. I mean, even I remember that even up to the launch of the 360, I actually borrowed a PS2 because I had to trade mine in to get the 360. I actually had to borrow a PS2 to beat God of War 2 because I think it came out during that last year when the 360 came out, if I remember correctly. That I mean, more power to you, brother. You definitely squeezed that PS2 era to
Oh,
you know.
absolutely, dude. Because they were
And
still coming out with the sports games. They were still coming
yep.
out with everything that I wanted. And I played Gears. I chainsawed him. Oh, we'll make this quick. I chainsawed him, and he screamed at the top of his lungs and said, "You mother!" You know what I'm saying? And
Yeah.
he lost his mind. And I was like, man, I've never seen anything like this. And like I was sitting there for a
Okay.
second, just kind of like I did it. I got killed after, and I'm just like, I've never been able to just chainsaw somebody in half. Like I understand the premise, like it's like a kind of a quick time event, but I timed it. You know what I mean? Like, and he
Did
looks
you
at
know?
me.
Go ahead.
He looks at me and he goes, "You know, I've not had somebody chainsaw me this entire time I've been playing this game." And I said, "You're full of shit because it's gonna happen again." And I fucking chainsawed his ass. And I'll tell you something right now. He lost it. He shut the game off. He said, "Fuck you." So we'll go like I'd say 6 months later. I save up the money for the 360 because I'm like, screw it, right? I get Gears of War 2.
Okay.
Okay. Gears of War 2. This is why I say Phoenix Collection, please, because it deserves an Unreal 5 treatment. The beginning of
Absolutely.
that game is one of the greatest beginnings of a game of all time.
Yep.
Like, you know, and you could put the rookie part in it or not. Like if you just skip it, you know, Prescott's speech, like I didn't hate Prescott until we got to Gears 3. You know what I mean? At
Yeah,
the end, you
yeah,
know,
he was still a good guy. He was still a good
yeah.
guy in
And
two.
then he
Yeah.
was saying, you know, we could see the snarkiness, but he became the snarkiness. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So it was like,
Definitely.
dude, please redo this because it was built in UE2, I believe, or UE. No, it was UE2.
I think so. Yeah, I think you're right on that.
Yeah. So the architecture from UE3 on is actually very similar, but apparently UE. So they would have to kind of rebuild the game. And this is where the development would come in. And that's why I tell people, like, if they're going to do it, it's at least going to take a year, you know. So maybe you see E3 and then maybe next year, you know what I
Yeah,
mean?
it makes
Or the
sense.
end of the year.
It definitely makes sense. And I mean, with the rumors a couple of weeks ago that there's some type of remaster coming out, it's either going to be people who got their money on Fable or a Gears Phoenix collection. I personally want a Phoenix collection, and I think it makes sense for that to come out, Crispy, because if you think about it, uh, I would think that the coalition would kind of repeat their steps that they took with Gears 4, where if you remember, and I'm sure you're going to remember this, what they did was they kind of redid Gears Ultimate, which was Gears 1, using the Unreal Engine, the newest,
The
latest and
UE4.
greatest.
That was
But
UE4, yeah.
correct. They built the game from ground up. That game, I showed a gameplay a little while ago, looks fantastic, even till this day. You would think that they would want to do the same thing maybe for Gears 2, give it kind of like an anniversary treatment, and it deserves it, dude.
Well, and this is the thing, like the majority of the community is going to argue about whether Gears 2 or Gears 3 are the two greatest games, you know, for
Yeah,
Gears you've ever played. It's
yeah,
never Gears 1. Gears 1, the reason why it's so easy for them to do this and it would only take a year is they don't really have to do a whole lot to Ultimate Edition. So, you know,
hmm
it just becomes Gears 1 now. You know what I mean?
yeah.
Like that's what Gears 1 is now. They had to
Gears 1,
rebuild that game. Like they had to
yeah,
rebuild the entire like they had Gears 1 on Game Pass before Gears Ultimate Edition came out. It wasn't Game Pass. It was like $4 or something. And I hadn't
yeah,
played Gears 1 in years. So I went and I bought it for like $4 and you know, it was absolutely horrible. But I was like, dude, like Gears Ultimate Edition come out. I just got to try and see what these maps are and everything else. Like I kept pushing through, but it was like
yeah,
so laggy. And I'm like, dude, I went back and played Gears 3 like probably like 6 months ago, and it was horrible.
yeah.
Absolutely horrible. And I'm like, this is not what I remember. I remember killing like 17 people in a row with a sawed off and a shotgun in the beta. Like, how does this happen? Like, what
Did
did
you
happen?
play? Did you play it after? Did you play it after it got the FPS boost recently?
I haven't because I feel like they're going to do it, but maybe because of this smart delivery and all this other stuff, it might be actually even easier. And I'm telling you, whenever this movie gets announced, that's when this game's going to come out. That's the way I'm
That
thinking. It's still there. The movie's still there. They're going to play that card. The Halo thing, like there's so much hype about the Halo series. Like if Paramount makes a shit ton of money, they're going to be happy campers. Microsoft's going to be happy because they know their IP is relevant even out of gaming. This is where I go and say, like, dude, they're going to buy somebody that's, way bigger than you would think, like doing
right.
like, streaming with movies and TV and having like, studios that do movie and TV like that. That's
How
the
long?
metaverse right now.
Exactly. Yeah. And how long has Batista been clamoring for that role, man? I
I don't
mean,
think it's going to
Batista.
be Batista. I don't.
Well, I mean, it might not be, but I mean, he's been championing Gears
Well,
of War, Gears of
they
War
put him
movie.
as a skin for Marcus, which is like
Yeah,
unheard of, never happened. And
exactly.
people
Hey,
played the game as him, so
I tried it for a level, and then I felt bad replacing Marcus. I'm like, I can't do that to my boy.
like,
You know what
my
I'm saying?
tomatoes, my
Yeah,
tomatoes.
I can't do that to my boy, man. I had to put back the original Marcus. So, Crispy, let's round off so let me kind of summarize, and you can fill in the gaps, and you can kind of make any corrections if I'm wrong here. So what I'm understanding is that during the PlayStation 1 and 2 era, you were heavily into the PlayStation ecosystem. Um, Xbox was not even on your radar until pretty much you played Gears of War. You kind of curb stomped. Did you say it was your friend or your cousin there?
It was my friend, yeah.
It was your friend. You curb stomped him, and you finally got one over on him. And and the dude got so pissed that he just turned off the system. That's classic. And pretty much, is it Gears? Gears is what really got you invested into the Xbox ecosystem. Crispy, is that fair for me to say? That this one
Yes, it
franchise?
is.
Wow, and that's
It's
powerful,
absolutely,
man.
yeah.
That
No,
that's very powerful.
that's where IP I go and say, like, I don't like if somebody really loves Last of Us 2, and that's like
Yeah,
one of the first games they played from Sony, and they go and buy a PlayStation, I don't hate you for it because I've been there. Like I
exactly.
still, like, you could see how enamored I still am in Gears and how I'm still learning the game. You know what I'm
Yeah.
saying? Like, and you have to understand that I'm right-handed and I am technically blind in my right eye. I see
Oh, okay.
absolute shadows and everything else. I use my left eye for everything. But when you have a game that has right-hand advantage, it actually becomes a problem because my peripheral view does not see, that right-hand corner of the TV. And that's why my
Gotcha.
TV, like I have a 43-inch TV. That's about as big as I'm ever gonna get because
Gotcha.
I don't need to be turning my head. And it's hard enough, looking at something when you only have your left eye, really seeing it. I see the shadows. I see that somebody's there, but the reaction and how I shoot, that's where the problem lies. You know what I'm
Yeah.
saying? It's not
Yeah.
like, and I'm not taking away because I know people that are, technically, blind in both eyes. Like, but I mean, I could show you my license. I have a Class D license. Like, I'm not bullshitting. My right eye is shot. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? And I'm fine with that. Like, at least I have one decently good eye. Actually,
You might you
if I
might
went
have a benefit
blind,
of playing. I mean, and I'm sorry to interrupt you, but you might have a benefit in playing on a monitor, like maybe a 32 inch. It might give you kind of like better response
field of
and
view,
everything.
field of
Yeah,
view. That's the way I would
yeah.
look at it. No, I get that. It really comes down to what I'm playing the monitor on.
Okay.
So, like the Series X I have was completely my buddy, the dude that I beat for Gears many years ago. I've worked with him for years. I've hung out with him many times. We love cooking, love smoking. We have the same type of mentality. It's just he has like 4 kids, and I am who I am, and I just don't have that. So he's busier than me. But when we get together, dude, it is just it's fucking awesome. I love chilling with the guy, and he just hit me up and he was like, dude, like my buddy who works at PC Richard & Son has a Series X for sale. You got to buy a controller and a game. And I
Yeah.
was like, okay, so what's the total hypothetically? He's like, oh, $650. I did the math myself. I was like, dude, I'm down.
Yeah,
And
that's a good
then
deal.
the beauty of it is that, before, like, my exes would be like, no, you can't do that, because they don't understand. Gaming is an escape, but at the same time, it brings me to a mentality where when you have a problem, I'm actually more, supportive about it, because
Okay.
I've gotten my escape. And my girlfriend completely sees that. She looked at me and I was like, I have to do this. Even though I didn't have the, money, I knew that this console was going to be extremely hard to find. And I had my
Absolutely.
one single chance. And that's exactly what I did. And she completely agreed with me. And that's something that
That's
I
good.
wasn't used to. And just like my parents, like, no, they would never. You know what I mean? They would never agree.
Yeah.
If my money was involved with theirs, they would never agree with that. But she
Yeah,
was like,
having support like that, Crispy, is so important, especially for just in a relationship aspect, right? I think that having the support of your significant other in ventures that you want to explore, or like you said, something that you need for your mental health, right? It is something that's very important. There's like we were talking about earlier, there's so many, people that just don't understand that gaming is that escape for some people. It's a form of entertainment. It's a way that you can kind of disconnect yourself from the free world. And I know exactly what you're talking about, brother. And I'm so happy that you're with someone that understands that, and I think that that's something that, you guys should value of each other. And, whenever she comes up with a venture or something that she's interested in, of course, you'll reciprocate and be like, hey, I got you. I got your back. I got your back, whatever you need and whatever you want to do. That's huge, man.
exactly. But don't give her Jade. Oh my God, she's so dirty with Jade. In Mortal Kombat 11. Oh my God, she's so dirty with Jade. Like,
I want to say,
literally, she
hey
won't
to Mav.
play.
How you doing, Mav?
Mav is here. Wow,
Mav
thank you,
is there.
bro.
Yeah. What's up, Mav?
Somebody's here. I mean, it is a Super Bowl, so I mean,
Hey,
this is
man.
like, to have one person here. I'm actually super happy right now.
And
The one
for
thing I
sure,
look
dude.
at is that, like, she, like, I'm not joking. Like, she has absolutely owned me with Jade. Like, yes, there's a couple characters I could pull out, and she would be like, oh damn. Like, I for some reason I beat her with a Joker all the time, which is just weird. But if she brings out Jade, I'm like shaking in my boots. I'm like, hypothetically pissing
Shit.
myself. You know what I mean?
you're
Like,
like, you're like,
I'm
you're like,
like,
shit. I got the
and
lady
the
here is
worst
gonna
part
kick my
is I
ass.
do it to myself sometimes, because she'll pick random, and I'll be like, well, bring out the character, because she'll be like, oh, my fingers hurt and stuff. Like, she doesn't play games like that. Like, she's beaten a Plague's Tale, and like she's beaten a lot of, like, games I wouldn't play, but I've also watched her play them, and I'm like, man, this
Yeah.
game's actually, it's something special. It's not my jam. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, and I think that if we get into podcasting, I think that's what a lot of podcasters forgot. Like, it's all about, what you doing for me lately. And sometimes, being on a podcast or anything else, it's about speaking your actually feelings rather than, how you're going to make more views. And I think a lot of
Yeah.
podcasters make that mistake. It's more or less like, are you going to respect me at the end of the day? That's the way I look at it. Like, do you understand where I'm coming from? If you don't, you can gladly, talk to me after. But at the same time, like, so many people are so defensive about, if you, kind of make a comment that, your plastic box is not doing well, even though it's your favorite console. That's what happens. Like, you're just like, like, when I'll tell you, I got a lot of hate when they upped the price to Xbox Live and,
Mm-hmm.
all this shit. You know what I mean? I was like, oh, hell no. And
Of
literally
course.
the whole chat was like, oh, it's okay. And this and that. And I'm like, no,
Hell
it's
no, it's
not
not okay.
okay.
No.
It's
What the
not
hell?
okay, dude. Like,
It-
this is
I-
not. Look, I'm a Game Pass Ultimate subscriber. It's not affecting me. But you're going to sit here and tell me that it's just okay for them to double their price in a day. And what they
Listen,
do afterwards.
like I told you, Crispy. I don't have a filter, brother. I call it like I see it. If anyone out there wants to allow a corporation, mega Microsoft or whoever the hell else, to just come on over and bend you over and take you, that's on you, man. At least I'm gonna put up a fight because I want to be like, listen, I'm sorry, but $120, that is just unreasonable, and it's 100%. We see what you're trying to do here. You're trying to convert everybody to Game Pass, and we understand that, but you're not going to take advantage of us either. We're not going to pay for it because of what it is that you're trying, to accomplish here. So even as an Xbox centric gamer that I am, okay, I've been on Xbox since the OG Xbox, Crispy. I'll get into that in a second, but I'm sorry, dude. I was with you. I'm with you right there. As soon as I saw that announcement that morning, I'm like, this is bullshit. Why the fuck would you guys even do this? And I was vocal about it. And I went on and I posted my thoughts on it. I'm like, this is wrong. You guys need to reverse this and stop with the bullshit. We know that obviously you guys want to convert everybody to Game Pass. We believe, in your vision, and we know you're going to get there, and we're riding that wave. But at the same time, don't fuck over everybody, just because. And what did they do, Crispy? Within 24 hours or less, they reversed that. And it's like the message here is that, I guess what I'm trying to say, Crispy, and maybe you might be trying to say the same thing. Don't be fucking afraid to vocalize how you feel, man. There's nothing wrong with that. As long as you do it in a respectful way, you're not, disrespecting anyone out there. You're not sending death threats like some of these freaking psychos and shit like that. Just do it in a respectful way. Voice your opinion. Me and you, Crispy, we don't got to agree on everything. But you know what? If you say something I don't agree with, I'll be respectful. I'll be, hey, Crispy, I respectfully disagree with what you said. It's on you, but I look at it. You see a blue wall, I see a white wall. You know what I'm saying? And there's nothing wrong with that. And I think that, to go back to some of the comments that you made earlier, yeah, we have gotten very sensitive. We're living in a very sensitive world where, this is a whole other topic, and I don't want to go on, on a rabbit hole here. But you know what, man? When our role as men is, we have many roles, in this world. I believe that God put us here for a reason. One of the roles that we have is that we need to call it as we see it. You know what I'm saying? And like I said, as long as you're respectful about it, you don't have to demean anybody or demean their beliefs or their console or their company or their preferences or anything like that. But you can say, I don't agree with that. And there's nothing wrong with that. And people should respect others of their opinion as well. You know what I'm saying? And sorry, I went on a little rant there, brother, but I just wanted to kind of piggyback on some of the things that I've kind of picked up on you tonight and see if we're kind of aligned there.
Yeah, it's pretty simple to say, don't be a hypocrite.
Yep.
If you really think about it. It's sad to say, but I mean, you could look at my track record. I've been on some of the most hostile, and I mean hostile, podcasts you could ever have. And they've had thousands of views at times. And one of them, I'm not going to name. I'll tell you later if you want to know. But
I mean,
it had 1,000 people in the chat. And I got set up with somebody that told me to go F myself not long after on another podcast. So
you see, that's those things right there.
Though I got set up. I didn't even know he was going to be there. And then it proceeded to the panel absolutely trashing this dude. And I didn't have to say a word. Instead, I brought my points out. I brought my points out for the question instead of, being some like, hey, let me just jump on this bandwagon and go for it. No.
Yeah.
I brought up my own points. Guess what? You can't find that podcast no more. And I'll tell you later. But yeah, it doesn't exist. And you want to know the justification?
What's
For a
that?
period of time before I started going at this single person that put this podcast out there, okay, I was a moderator. He made me a moderator right after because I went in the chat and I was like, oh, let's see what they're talking about today because all I heard was trash the first time. And that's what I got. Okay. And I talked to this person, but at the same time, I don't agree with him. And I think it's asinine the way some people think. I think that if you're going to sit there and complain about, how Xbox has no exclusives, well, where's the hell is the multiplayer that you used to be really damn good at back when I played SOCOM and Killzone and Resistance and all these freaking great games that had a single player and a multiplayer? What happened to it? And now all of a sudden, multiplayer means something a little bit more than the single player. And that's where my argument is even better now. And nobody's got no defense for it. And it's like, all I'm asking, if you want me to buy a PS5, you gotta give me some multiplayer. And I'm not talking Final Fantasy, never been a fan. And there's so many people that have never been a fan of Final Fantasy. They are great at what they do. They have a huge, huge fan base. Not taking anything away from that, but there's still a huge, huge fan base that does not play those games. They play the Call of Duties.
Okay? Of course.
They play the PUBGs. They play the Fortnites. They play whatever's a shooting game. And that's all they play. They play the sports games. They play Madden. They play FIFA. They play whatever they want to. And they don't look at the console. And that's what people are ignoring. They don't look at the console. They look at what they're giving them.
They don't give a shit about that, man. They don't have the casual has no loyalty, Crispy. There's no such thing as loyalty to the casual. It's where can I play this game the cheapest? That's the way it's been, brother, for the longest time. And we'll get to that in a little bit. All right, we'll get to that in a little bit. But I want to show you something, brother. Since we're on Gears, right? And before we get there, check this out, Crispy. This is kind of like a personal goal of mine that I have. And I just finished picking these up in like the last month. Oh, shit. These are all the Gears books for, that continue the story and stuff like that. Because one of my personal goals and something that I want everybody to know out there is that my favorite Xbox franchise is Gears of War. I love Gears. I love the universe that Cliffy B and Epic came up with back, in the 360 days. And dude, one of the things I want to do is I want to go through I want to have a sit down. I don't know how long it'll take me, probably like a few months, whatever. Dude, I want to sit down and play every single game, read every single comic. I also have the comics also. And just go through the whole history because the Gears universe is one that is so expansive, one that it's so visceral, and a lot of people kind of see it kind of like the dude bro shooter. At least that's what it was known for. But it's characters, brother. Its characters are bar none some of the best in gaming. Okay, because typically when you play a game, right? Let's say a game like God of War or even The Last of Us on the PlayStation side. Yeah, you do have your staples. You have your Kratoses of the world. Atreus, I guess, is growing on us now. But other than a few handful, Nathan Drake, supporting cast, a couple of characters here and there, what other franchise, dude, has really captured your imagination and your love for almost all the characters like Gears? I can't think of one. When you really think about it, I still remember even the smallest supporting character, which is Ty, from Gears of War 2, offs himself with a shotgun, if you remember that. I still remember the character that I think Ice Cube played in Gears 3.
Griffin.
There you go. I still remember the cowboy guy from Gears 3 as well. I think Dizzy was his name.
Dizzy.
Yeah. Dude, the characters, they that universe has characters that really grow on you and they mean something to you. Even though the Coltrane, dude, who doesn't love the Coltrane? Jesus Christ. If you don't like the Coltrane, there's something wrong with you, man. You know what I'm saying?
Coltrane runs on whole grain, baby.
Exactly, bro. So to me, that's one of my personal goals, brother. I just want to go through all of this media so I can really take in that universe. And I love it. It's my favorite Xbox franchise. But I feel that once I do that, I'm gonna appreciate it even more, dude, even more. And I'm a big comic book guy. My sleeve, I have a sleeve here, crispy, completely filled with Marvel villains. I've been a comic book fan my whole life, ever since I was little. Started collecting cards, comics, the works. With the MCU, that's been, dude, up until Endgame. That to me was a dream come true, to see all these heroes and the fashion and the scope that Marvel was able to bring these characters to its fans. But with everything, dude, the comic books nowadays, I'm sorry, dude, they're so bad. You know what I'm saying? So I'm learning to appreciate kind of other mediums, such as anime now, and manga and stuff like that. Demon Slayer has become like kind of a staple in this household with me and my
I
wife.
mean, I watched Dragon Ball Z for years. I read like everything I could possibly read about Dragon Ball Z. Like back then, like Goku was like the king. Like the
Yeah.
struggles, like everything he went through. Being a Super Saiyan and all that was just it was something else, and a lot of people didn't understand that. That's where I go and say like the one beauty is now is that gaming isn't an afterthought anymore. And
Yeah.
being a fan of something is different from being a fanboy. And
Mm-hmm.
I truly believe
Absolutely.
people need to figure that out in their own head. Because
Right.
even last show on Breakfast of Boom, I was super. I had people saying I'm going to sell my Xbox because they did this, and I was like, "Well, you're not a real Xbox fan. You don't even
Yeah.
understand." You know what I
Exactly.
mean? Like I was like, you just don't understand what they're trying to do. And
Right.
you can go and say, like, hey, it's $1 trillion corporation. Who cares? Well, I'll tell you right now, there's one person that cares about his perception, and that is Phil Spencer. He absolutely
Absolutely.
cares. And also, I'll tell you right now, don't be surprised if Sarah Bond gets a bigger role very soon, because she's
Yep.
been on social media like no holds bar, and
They're
been
they're building up to it. Yeah.
putting out some great stuff. Pro gamer, screw the console war BS. And then, I mean, we'll get into the rest of the conversation in a second, I'm sure, but it's one of those things like being brought up the way I have, having to struggle to get the games I want to play, to get the console I want, at that period of time, that has led me up to also not care about achievements and stuff like that. Like I look at gaming and I say, what do you enjoy today? That's the way I look at it, and that's the way I've always looked at it. Like today, it might be Martha is dead, and you might be
Mm-hmm.
able to play a better version on Xbox, because even though it's grotesque and unheard of, I remember when shooting somebody in the head or chainsawing them was against the law. So,
Yeah. Yep.
you know what I mean? That is your choice. And especially if you're an adult or you're in charge of a child, you should say, hey, I'm going to put these settings up because they're there, which my parents didn't have. My parents let me do whatever I wanted. I did things, the characters back then that were like completely ridiculous, like shooting them in the head, like behind the back, like nothing. Like I was a child then. I didn't care. Like I was
Were
like,
you taking
I'm gonna
the
win.
were you taking the hookers on the corner and then running them over to get the money back in GTA 3?
Yes, thank
Yeah,
you.
of course,
Yes.
dude. Come on.
No,
You need that money back.
Vice City really started the hooker thing though. But yeah. I mean, it's one of those things, like they just let me do what I wanted to, but I also formed my own opinion. And I said, for a horror game to be, taken out of context in some way, because I watched some of the, the footage of people doing that, and I'm like,
Are you referring to Martha? Martha's Dead?
Yes.
That it got censored on
I
PlayStation?
haven't bought it yet. My girl's probably gonna want me to buy it for her because
Yeah.
I'm telling you, like that's the type of game she will get into that. She will
Mhm.
cringe doing it, but she will be like, "Wow, this is just crazy." You know what I
But
mean?
are you
Like,
trying? Are you trying to say because you went into it? Are you trying to say that what you don't understand is what they're censoring? Is that what you're saying?
yeah,
Oh, okay. All right. Yeah, I agree. You know, we talked about that. I was on
it's an
I was
art
on
form. It's art. It's like if you're painting somebody and they're standing in front of you naked, is that art? At the end of the day,
you're gonna draw black bars over the private parts. I mean, of course, dude. We went into this yesterday. I was on with Kay Asante on his show and Mav, and someone brought it up in the chat. And I mean, the way that I saw it was, you remember Modern Warfare 2, that it gave you kind of like a disclosure before you started playing, that it told you, look, if you want to skip this level, it involves, shooting and sensitive material, but it's your choice. It's your choice. You can either
if
choose
they could
to
do it
play it.
then, they could do it now, right?
That's what I'm saying. So, when you get into, dude, I mean, we're getting into heavy stuff that, that
It's
I
not
kind
that
of
heavy
think,
though. I mean, you have to
no,
look at
but
it this way. Dude, I've dismembered people on video games,
yeah,
everything else. Like, it's
yes,
it's kind of it's kind of
it to
nonsense. You know what I'm
go back
saying?
to your
Not
point.
saying it's
It's
grotesque. It is
but
grotesque. It
but to
makes
get
me
back,
cringe, but
But to go back to your point, it's hypocritical. That's what probably ticks you off about it. It's hypocritical because you have all these games. You have GTA 5, where as soon as you start the game, the first thing you're doing is going into a strip club, with a woman shaking her ass right in your face. You know what I'm saying? But they're not going to allow something. Yeah, I understand it's not the same thing, but I just put this, in my opinion, right? The correct way to handle this, don't take it away. You know what I'm saying? Put a disclosure in and say, listen, just know that this is in this game. Now you choose whether you want to consume that media and support that developer or not. It
or
could
make
be
it a
that you're,
level. Or
or
make it a
right,
level.
right. Or you say, you know what? There's some stuff on a director's cut type thing that you can see alternate scenes. I have no idea. But to remove it completely and censor shit is what I don't agree with. I don't agree with PlayStation coming around and just saying, you know what? Let's censor this because we don't want to catch heat and we don't want that bad media attention. I understand why they're doing it. I understand it's a company. I'm a grown up. I understand things. But at the same time, like, it's very hypocritical to your point where you're dismembering people on other games and now you care about this shit. It makes you look stupid, in my opinion. You know what I'm saying?
What? Because it's sparks instead of blood? Like, let's be honest here. Like,
Yep.
when you're in Devil May Cry and you freaking cut somebody's arm off and then cut their head off, that's what it is. Might be something else than what you would actually see. I mean, are we censoring blood now? Because it comes out of my veins, and if I cut myself, I bleed. Let's be honest. Like, it's not about that. Like,
And what about Sony? Yeah, and what about Sony? What about The Last of Us 2 when
oh
Abby
God,
is,
yeah.
dude? But they're okay with that, right? But they're okay
Mm.
with that. I'm gonna be honest with you. When I got to that part,
Sexuality is fine, including actually having sex with somebody in a video game, but
yeah.
that's okay. And keep in mind, this is
Come on,
not
man.
like you just doing something. This is a cut scene. Like come on. Like let's be honest here. Like you're even Death Stranding has some like shady like dialogue and other things that I'm like, yo, what are you saying right now? You know what I mean? Like, these are things like words probably hurt more than visuality. Like, if you don't want to cut somebody's face off and take it off, well, just think of it this way. There is plenty of society in the past that have done this easily because they stole
isn't that like,
something, because
yeah,
they cut hands off. They've done crazy things. Like, you're
Crispy? How many?
talking to a society right now that just it can't take the grotesqueness, because that's all it is. It is a video game. It's a
Crispy,
video game.
how many fatalities in MK11 don't have them ripping the face off of? Like a handful at least. Don't how many fatalities in MK11 don't have the brain popping out and cutting it in half?
And that's
Dude,
completely uncensored on PlayStation. It's just
that's what I'm
it's
that's what I'm saying.
asinine. It's being a hypocrite. You're completely right. I was just trying to kind of like even back up your point more, but yeah, I mean that's the way I look at it. Like, don't be a hypocrite. And I mean, this is where I go and say, you know, how I became a podcaster, how I became a part of panels and
Yeah, let's
really
get
got
into it.
people to enjoy how I think about things. And it really comes down to the people that allowed me to do it. I'm not gonna lie about that. Like, if I have my own podcast in a year, I'm hoping for it, but right now, like, what I want for specs for what I'm gonna pay are not what I'm going to do right now, because
Yeah.
I'll buy, like, I have a Vizio that's sitting up in my you know my bedroom, and that thing runs great. And it was a 1080p 120 hertz right off rip. The thing still runs great, even with all the new content that's coming out. Still one's
Okay.
freaking beautiful, and it is 12 years old. Okay. I invest in things, and the options right now is like get an i9, get a Ryzen with it's not great though. It's like the lower end, and it's like,
Oh yeah.
and I'm paying $3,000 for it, and I'm like, I'm not doing this. I'm not
You're
doing
right.
this
And
right now.
I just paid for a PC not too long ago, a couple of months ago. I paid through the years for it. So you're 100% right.
And don't get me wrong, I'm looking for a pre-built because actually they're cheaper right now and you have better specs right now.
Mhm.
So I'm almost like, I got to wait a little longer, and then I'm going to figure out, because I don't want to let people down. I've done that once before. Like, I want to create my own podcast. You know what I mean? And
Yeah.
really it'll be
What
one, and I might drop another one. To be honest, it might happen. But
Can I be honest with you with one thing though, Crispy? This is something that my wife kind of told me before I started doing this venture, and I think that I'm going to tell you the same thing because life goes full around, man, and it goes full circle sometimes with messaging and stuff. My Before I started, right? I'm the type of person, Crispy. Look, I have a handful of friends. To be honest with you, I'm a person that I'm a loner, dude. The John Wolf name is by design. It's I'm a lone wolf, and the thing is that honestly, she told me that she every time that there was an article or something coming out, I would vocalize it to her. She is my best friend after all, and I would be like, oh babe, look what happened here. Look what happened here. Xbox is kicking ass. Like, they're doing a lot of pro consumer stuff, really good. Sony's bringing out this game. This is going to be great, whatever. And she's like, I hear you listening to these podcasts every single week and every single day. Why don't you just get on there and do your own? And I'm like, babe, it's not that. It's just, what am I going to talk about? My opinions are mine. I really don't care what anybody thinks about what I think or whatever. But she told me, give it a try. Just give it a try and see, and at least you can vocalize yourself, and gives you something to do. It gives you can say that you built something on your own and stuff like that. And I started looking at it differently, Crispy. I'm like, what? For a long time, I guess where I'm trying to tell you is that for a long time I delayed things because I thought that I needed to have the perfect setup, the perfect background, the perfect camera, all that bullshit. And at the end of the day, brother, it comes down to who you are and what you're putting out there, man. And I started looking back at a lot of these YouTubers and social media personalities and stuff like that. Even some of our own colleagues that we talk to on a normal daily basis. And one of the things that I've seen, Crispy, is that I think that even if you have your phone, dude, believe it or not, I know that the quality, believe me, I know where you're coming from with that. But dude, you get on there and you start talking and you start start dropping some of those truths, dude, like you have before and on other podcasts. And I think that you can get started right away, brother, and it'll be a hit, man. I really do believe that, and I want to let you know that. So if it's a thing that you're trying to get that perfect scenario and perfect circumstances, don't let that hold you back, brother, because I think that you definitely will make it. And I think that you have some good things to say. I just wanted you to know that, okay?
Dude, I really that was very heartfelt. I appreciate that a lot.
Absolutely.
I'm one of them, I would say, completionist before actually completing it. So
Okay.
I'm one of those people that, I have what is it, like an SK8000 Sony, like it's an old TV, still looks absolutely ridiculously amazing.
Yeah.
It doesn't run at 120 frames, but it runs at 60 solid the whole time.
It's
You know
good
what I
enough.
mean? Like it is a damn good TV, and I purchased this 7 years ago. You know what I mean? Like I'm one of them people, like I try to future proof myself because I don't like changing a lot. Like, yes,
Mhm.
I will eventually buy a new TV when it's logical to me. You understand what I'm saying? So,
Yeah, yours has to break down for you to justify the purchase.
not even just that. I'm talking about, it being logical, that the upgrade is logical and the price
Oh,
is
okay.
logical. So,
Okay.
like, for example, a C9 right now is $2,000.
Hmm.
Especially right now. I'm not talking like, actually it was cheaper like a year ago. A
Okay.
C9 is actually pretty expensive right now because the chip shortage has created this. And LG has kept up with Samsung, not anybody else. A lot of people think LG is like the greatest thing in the world. Nah, it was Samsung that started this. Okay, because they would put great chips. I've just tried to find a new one connect box for my Samsung, and it's not feasible. They won't make it because they know they can do it. The entire TV is run off of the one connect box, technically. So
Mm.
I could buy a new connect box that has all the 120 FPS, has the HDMI 2.1 and everything else, all that stuff has all of that, but they won't make it because they know that they're not going to sell any more TVs because this
Right.
TV is that good, and it's only
Hmm.
because it is a smaller version. They gave me all the tools. Technically, if HDMI 2.1 didn't come out, I still play games at least 80 frames per second.
Okay.
Okay. Because this TV is built for 120 frames per second. It just didn't
Gotcha.
have the technology, the connections, everything else. All I need is a new one connect box. And I'll tell you right now, you could ask anybody in this house right now. This TV looks better than any TV we have. And some of them are brand new compared to this, like
Right.
years later. And yes, they're a cheaper version, but I hear people saying TCLs look great. And I hear people saying Vizios, which have shit the bed, look
Don't tell
great.
King that.
Like,
Don't tell King about that TCL though. He's not a fan. No, man. TCLs are good, man. I've seen some TCLs on Best Buy. I think it's Best Buy, and they have okay quality. If that's what you can get, that's what you can get, right?
my quality's better. I could tell you right now, like I looked at for example, the GT7, the footage. I'm on RGT. I was with BitCloud. I was watching it on his channel, and I was
Mhm.
like, dude, this looks fuzzy. And then he had the wrong resolution. It still didn't look as good as Forza, but then I go and talk about it later, and I shut people down because you're telling me that you're going to compare Forza Horizon 5, which is a completely open world racing game, against a linear, racing game that
Right.
is, on a track, and the track doesn't look that great. And you're going to sit here and tell me that's better. Well, that's
Right.
fine. But how about Motorsport that's going to come out eventually? That is completely in the Turn 10 engine.
Oh yeah,
How
that's gonna
about
be
that?
nice. Yep.
And I brought up that point that, they have 400 cars. Well, the previous iteration of Motorsport had 700 and nobody had to say. This is where I absolutely, like, people will argue about stupidity, like, but bring up the logical points. And I feel like people can't do that anymore. They
Yeah.
can't and I'll tell you right now, I don't get any likes. I don't get people like at mass following me. But at the end of the day, I feel better about myself because
Absolutely.
I don't feel like I was untruthful. I'm just telling you my point. And
Yeah.
that's all. And it's just crazy how people dude, I've been told to shut the fuck up on a podcast that I was a part of. And
You
then
know,
have
it's funny
other
because
people defend me at the same time.
dude, let me tell you something personally. I know I shouldn't even be talking because I'm new to this shit, but I guarantee you somebody disrespects somebody like that, that'll be the damn last time they're ever on my podcast for sure. Because again, it's one of those things that's fine. Hey, everybody can disagree or whatever, but you're talking to another man here, man. For you to be hiding behind a computer and tell someone to shut the fuck up, that doesn't, I mean, that's kind of cowardly. What, I would like,
Well,
I would
I
like to
guess
see,
me and you are more alike than you even realize because
I
I'm
mean,
old school. I'm real old school. Say that to my fucking face.
oh,
That's
you're
what I
done.
say.
You're done.
Say
That's
that
it.
to my fucking face.
Look, I'm very level-headed, very chill and stuff like that. But when it comes to, you disrespect me or my wife or anything like that, and that's it. It's done. You're gonna definitely see me go in that Kratos rage. You know what I'm saying? So, but Crispy, let's talk about some recent acquisitions, brother. And before we get there, though, what's real fast, and then we'll get to the recent acquisitions. What's your favorite Gears game, Crispy? That's a loaded question, but if you had to give me your overall favorite Gears game, I'm assuming you've played them all. What would you say that Gears game is?
It's Gears 2.
Okay.
Gears 3 was super innovative. Especially with the time lapse and everything else between the 8 different people. You know what I mean?
Mhm.
If you don't know what I mean, then you don't know what I mean, and you just need to shut up and end it
Yep.
there. But
Yep.
yeah, 8 different people, and especially Act 1 and 2 were just phenomenal in Gears 3. But
Sick as shit.
Act 1 in Gears 2 at that time just destroys it
And
because
you're talking about when you're on that big vehicle that
well,
you're
and then
moving in.
Scourge comes out
Oh
and
yeah, he was a
like,
badass,
dude,
dude.
like they set up the whole thing so beautifully. Dom and Maria, like it was just it's one of those games that like
I cried. I
I
fucking cried, dude.
I really they need to do this because there are so many young people that are like, I don't know about Gears. I'll play the single player and see what it's about. Gears 2 and Gears 3, but Gears 2 especially need that treatment. They need to be upgraded to something. I mean, my God, one of the best beginnings of the game I've ever seen. And you could add more AI and everything else with the technology that's out there. Like it could be something even more epic. And I'm just like, I'm sitting there and I'm like salivating, like all these rumors and everything else. I'm like, please, for the love
Dude,
of
that'll be
God, redo Gears 2 because Gears 3 is already like it was built in Unreal Engine 3. It looks really good. It really does. It still looks really good. Like the campaign is still kind of flawless, but it could still use a little something, especially with what we have now.
Right.
I look
Right.
at Gears 2 and I say this thing was built in Unreal 2. Man, this thing can really and it can be upgraded easier than if you were to go to the Gears, Gears of War 1, the original. You know what
Yeah.
I'm saying? But it was also developed for PC, and that's the reason why Ultimate Edition actually came out as good as it did.
Right.
It was actually had extra acts and everything in the PC. That's where people are like Microsoft and how dare you put something on PC? Now they've already done that. You just
Yeah.
haven't paid attention.
Yeah.
Like that's where that certain person told me to shut the fuck up because
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. And
don't
I
talk
remember.
about Gears to me. Like
I remember that part. I remember that part that you're right. There was an extra. You had to fight the Brumac on that Windows edition of the
yes.
original.
Mhm.
Yep. I remember that, and I remember that I was saving up to get a PC. And since I didn't know anything about PC gaming back then, I was asking anybody that I could on the forums and shit like that. I would be like, "Hey, what's the minimum specs that I can get to at least run this okay?" And I never got around to it, dude. And it's a shame because I don't remember now off the top of my head. Did they include that Brumac fight in the Gears of War Ultimate? From do you know?
Yes, they did. Yes, they did
Oh,
because
okay, cool,
they
cool.
added all the PC elements to it.
Oh,
Um,
cool. All right.
the one thing I'll say is that Gears, I like, dude, if you read all the comics, all the stories, everything else, more power to you. I'm not about that life. I know Gears, I know what they're capable of. I know that, Rod leaving was actually a good thing, which I was one of the few people that said that.
Oh yeah.
I
Why
was
do you
I
think
was
that, Chris? Because I got a little
it,
I got a little bit concerned. Why do you think that was a good thing?
because if you look at it this way, Rod has been developing Gears since the original.
Mm-hmm.
Now, hypothetically, he helped make Gears of War Ultimate Edition at least sustainable, made Gears come back through Microsoft. You know what I'm saying?
Okay.
He understands Gears, but he lost his way with Gears 5. And
Okay.
he actually, so Act 1 and Act 4 and 5 were really good. 2 and 3 horrible.
Be a little more
Okay?
specific. What do you mean? Like be a little more specific.
You he lost his way. He said we got to go open world.
Oh, okay.
We gotta give people like and don't get me wrong. Like you go through Act 2, and you go through that the whole snow scenes and everything else, like one of the most
Mm-hmm.
amazing looking games you've ever seen. But at the end of the day, it lost its gears way. It really brought in like, you know, kind of like open world elements. You have to go find certain weapons if you want. It gave you
Gotcha.
choice, but it was also very few and far between when you fought somebody as well. And that for a Gears player, that kind of drives you a little crazy because you know it's there, but you just gotta find it. And I don't want to find
And
it. I just want to
is it?
go there and
Yeah.
get it and kill it.
Brother, I can relate to what you're saying. I think I can because Gears has always been a linear adventure, a personal one that it's all about the story and and I get it. I can understand how they would want to expand the scope of the game in some way, make it a little longer, make you have a little more to do and kind of change the formula a little bit because at that time, dude, if you remember, and tell me if you agree with this, the coalition was basically holding, the Xbox brand by on its back, dude. The coalition was doing all the heavy lifting for them. Back before they announced all the acquisitions and all the initiatives that they did
Well, I
and all
mean,
that.
it was Halo, Gears, and Forza. I mean, they all
Yeah.
held it. I mean,
Yeah.
343 came out with Halo 5, and I
Yeah.
mean, I played enough of that campaign to say like if people love it, I don't hate them for it. You know what I mean?
Yeah. It,
I didn't play the whole thing because I lost. Like I said, I've always said I'm a multiplayer gamer, and you know playing multiplayer, which I did in that game, it was not the same as, the single player. It didn't feel
Yeah.
the same. You know what I mean? And 343 is good enough. And with Halo Infinite, like, I'm gonna go back and play that single player more and more. Just like I've done with Doom and stuff. Like Doom Eternal is an amazing game. Freaking
That shit's
amazing,
awesome.
dude.
Doom and Doom
And
Eternal are my favorite games.
and the music, like that's what I love even more. Like freaking Mick Gordon is just amazing. Like just crazy with the guitar and using all these like synthesis and all this other stuff. Like it's insane. And just the way the game feels is just like
exactly.
wow.
Not only does it feel great, but there's very little games that make you feel like a badass like Doom does. You literally feel unstoppable in that game, dude. And it gives you this. It's a simulator, it's a power simulator, and that's okay. But to me, dude, I love getting home from work and popping up Doom 2016 or Doom Eternal, and it makes me feel a heck of a lot better, dude. Because it's fantastic. So I know
Because you
exactly
feel
what you're
like a
talking about.
badass, exactly. And
Yeah,
that's what I've always felt about Gears. Like you got to feel like a badass. And I'll be honest with
yeah,
you, those two acts, Act 2 and 3, it wasn't my jam. Because I didn't.
gotcha.
Don't get me wrong. I had a lot of people who act like they never said it, but said on podcasts that I was on that how dare they have a female protagonist? I'll tell you right now, Kate's a badass motherfucker.
Oh yeah,
You know what I'm saying? Like she is a badass. She cares about things, but I'll tell you right now, she's a badass. She will go ham when she needs to.
absolutely.
And that's the type of person I am. I'm very like passive aggressive. Like, but
Mm-hmm.
when I get aggressive, it's like, dude, don't talk. If you don't, you might have a tattoo on your right arm. I don't give a shit, bro. You don't like Gears like I do. You don't see through the bullshit. Because you know what? Everybody says, oh, you want to talk to me? Microtransactions, all that shit. All the things that they did at the beginning of the launch of Gears 5 were horrible, basically. The game, Act 1 kept me to get through part of the game, and then I stopped. And I said, I'm going to play the multiplayer. And I did that for a while. And I was like, I'm not earning anything. And I said all this stuff. You know what I mean? Like, instead of being like, an asshole about it, I just said, this isn't happening. This is what I'm used to. Fix it. And they did eventually. Okay. But that's where I got mad about Halo Infinite. I was like, dude, you guys are doing the same damn thing. Yes, I get it. It's free to play. Okay. Big deal. Make the game the way it should be done.
Right.
Stop thinking about, oh, it's free to play. You'll make more money off of doing the game the way it should be done, rather than thinking about it's free to play. And that's something that I just like. PUBG is still relevant because they have completely thought out of the box. They give you free content. I have so many skins. It's incredible. And I was a founder. I bought it at $30 when it wasn't even technically released. It was the preview. I bought it at 30. I have so many freaking skins. It's incredible. I suck at the game now. People are just constantly trashing me. But at the same time, I'm like, I don't hate that I bought it for $30. I got a couple freaking, days or 3 days out of this game. Like, and it was enjoyable. You know what I mean? It was something that was on Xbox.
Crispy, I've heard you mention that a lot on a lot of shows you've been on about the nickel and diming of customers and with bullshit practices like this. Do you think, I think that we both can agree and use logic here, right? And we can say, look, they've tried things to incentivize people to make these purchases, and at the end of the day, it's a business, right? We understand that. Do you think that we kind of call out the bullshit when we see something like that, and you do, because you're just used to the old days of gaming, and it kind of rubs you the wrong way to see these practices where before they used to ship a game and what you got is what you got. You know what I'm saying? There was no need for these patches for this DLC. I remember Gears. I think Gears 2 or one of the early Gears, right? That even up to Gears 3, I think Gears 3 is where they started with the bullshit. And what I mean by that is that they were locking skins, multiplayer skins behind pre-orders and Doritos and Mountain Dew shit and all that. And I think that, it's like, I understand that money needs to be made. I'm a grown up here. I get it, but at the cost of taking away from a game, taking away skins. We've gotten to a point, dude, where now even on Call of Duty, I like playing Call of Duty. I'm a COD player, but even going on Call of Duty, dude, they're charging you $20 a pop for a skin and a weapon skin that has all the unlocks and shit like that, and a little badge for you to have. And let me tell you something. Sometimes I bite. Sometimes I'll throw out my $20 if I have it. But dude, it rubs me the wrong way though. Like in a way that I'm like, shit, man, I shouldn't have bought that. I kind of feel guilty about it, dude. To be honest with you, but I still fall for it, right? But do you think that that's what it is, man? That we grew up on this shit. We grew up. We're 80s kids for the most part, and we seen where gaming was. We kind of know how this house was built. And when we see this shit, it just pisses us off. Do you think that that's what it is, Chris?
You know what it is? It's that people ignore where this all came from. This all came from cell phones.
That's a great point.
This all came from cell phones because you have your Candy Crushes, you have all these best fiends, whatever it may be. you have those ones before them. You understand what I'm saying? Angry Birds, like things like that. And people will pay to be better in the game. And this is where I draw the line. If you're going to tell me that somebody's going to have a better weapon than me in Gears of War, I draw that line. Now, I will say this. Really, for console gaming, it actually all stems from Gears of War, which is kind of wild to think about, but it's true. If you think about it, the DLCs that came out within Gears 3, the different modes, they separated the community. A lot of people don't remember that. If you didn't have the season pass, you could not play with people that just had the regular game.
Wow. Okay.
So they did a lot of these things. Skins. One of the first skins ever devised in gaming was the gold skin in Gears 2.
Oh, yeah.
And that was a founders type thing. So
yeah,
it's one of those things that is just crazy. And I don't even know what else to say about it.
Yeah, look, we went down that rabbit hole, right? Trying to figure it out. It's so many things and so many practices have led to this shit. You know what I'm saying? But the bottom line is that me and you, there's nothing wrong with us having a conversation here on a podcast and call it for what it is. And it's bullshit. You know what I'm saying? But there's nothing wrong with that. And I think that goes back to, the message of this. I think that really the theme of this podcast, Crispy, and it's really that you're someone that voices their opinion. I'm the same way. And we shouldn't get flack for that. It's the way we feel about it. Whether it's true, whether it's not, whether it's right, wrong, whatever, it's our opinion, dude. You know what I'm saying? So if you are of the mind that shit, I'm happy that companies offer this type of practices because I don't have 40 hours to invest into a game for a skin. Hey, all power to you, dude. That's fine. But you know what? There's nothing wrong with someone like me and Crispy to feel differently about it. We think it's bullshit, and and there's nothing wrong with that. You know what I'm saying?
I mean, let's be honest for a second, and we can get into the acquisition talk. You look at it this way. I pay $15 a month. I get whatever game. Next Gears comes out, I get it. Next Forza comes out, I get it. Oh, hey, that's $120 right there.
Yep.
Think about it. It's one of those things. It's value proposition.
Absolutely.
Be smart of how you spend your money. And I've seen,
And don't knock those that want to save their money.
well,
I think that's the
the
big one.
biggest problem. That's the biggest
Yep.
problem. And I could literally destroy it in like, one sentence, but it's even easier than that. Don't look at somebody else like they're below you. And that's the easiest way to
Beautiful.
look at it.
Beautiful.
And you know what? I don't have a lot of money. Yeah, I have a house. You know what? I almost hate it at times because it's like, hey, I have no money this next day. You know what I mean? But I also enjoy the fact that I have a house and
Absolutely.
I've built this from basically, not necessarily the ground up, but going through trials and tribulations. And when you look at gaming, what Sony is doing right now with buying, Bungie and whatever else, you look at it and you say, well, they know that they're behind on this multiplayer gaming. And you know what?
Mhm.
For somebody my age, a lot of the people that are my age or older, they'd rather have this single player game. Me, I relish in whooping somebody's ass. And you
Yep.
know what? It doesn't happen often, but when it does, man, it feels good. And that's the way I look at gaming right now. Like, it's like Xbox is just playing a different game now, but they're not too far ahead like they have been before. You know what I'm saying? And with Phil there, like, dude, there's going to be some old IPs coming out of the woodwork.
Oh
Once
yeah, I
this
believe that.
Activision deal is done, I'm tell you right now, I wouldn't be surprised if I see a new Pitfall. And that's what I'm looking forward to.
I mentioned this to Asante. He was actually my first guest, and during our interview, one of the things that I told him was that one of the things that I see now, because I've been around just like you, Crispy, since the OG Xbox. Again, I feel like if I know enough to talk about this, and it's the way I see it. For the first time ever, if you really think about it, at least in my eyes, Xbox has set their own way and they've paved their own road. Where before it was always seen, there was this perception, right? There was this thing that they are trying to be right next to the PlayStation. You know what I'm saying? Like, okay, if PlayStation releases Uncharted, here comes Xbox wanting to have an Uncharted of their own, which is why they kind of got the exclusivity with Tomb Raider. They want to have their own Uncharted. You know what I'm saying? So now when you look at this gen, right, Phil has finally, he with all the accolades that he has, he finally got Microsoft, the company. Okay, Microsoft, the company, the big cheese, Satya, finally sees the vision. He finally bought into what Phil was selling, and they want and their actions speak louder than words. You don't spend $70 billion if you're not serious about something. Okay, that's the bottom line. That ends all conversation, all arguments, all these fanboy narratives that think that Xbox is going to go away and that they're going to become a third party public. Dude, $70 billion was just invested. All right. So everybody that's it. That kills that narrative. But for the first time ever, at least in my opinion, Xbox has paved their own road. They have completely separated from being quote unquote the PlayStation's little brother. Okay. It's like now where Nintendo did this during the Wii days. This is exact what Xbox is doing right now. In my opinion, is exactly what Nintendo did when they released the Wii. They said, "We're done. We're done trying to compete directly with Sony and Xbox. We're another direction." And that's what Xbox has done here, in my opinion. They decided to go on another direction, and they're like, "Hey, Sony, you won this round. Enjoy your victory. We're gonna attack this in a different way, and we're gonna do it our way." And now all three companies, Crispy, are completely different in the landscape of gaming. when you look at how Nintendo operates, it's a whole different outlook than PlayStation. PlayStation has their own ways with it, their exclusives. They play to their strengths, and now Xbox is playing to their strengths, which is their wallet, their services, the software, all that stuff combined. Tell me a little bit about that, brother. Do you agree with that? Do you know, how do you feel about that?
You know what's funny? Like you kind of took the words out of my mouth, and I'll say this: Microsoft has had their huge fumbles. I mean, I bought 360 and Red Ring of Death, like almost immediately. Also bought Madden 10 back then, and it just ate it. It ate it. Like it just completely just destroyed the disc. I bought a disc doctor for it just to get it back, because I was like, this doctor's cheaper than buying the new game, and it worked.
Did it work?
It did work. It did work.
Shit.
So, I look at these things and I'm like, the one thing that you have to look at Microsoft right now is they're looking at their hardware with like a magnifying glass, and they're like, we can't have what happened before, because especially for somebody like Phil, who's been through the Red Ring of Death and all these other things, you know what I'm saying? When you look at it and you say, like, they shouldn't have made it out, and they did, and they still, like, basically PlayStation 3 sold at the end more console, because I mean, technically it was superior hardware. A lot of people don't realize that.
They're also a global brand, where Xbox was dominating North America.
Xbox was dominating North America. They also had a 2-year head start. I'm not gonna sit here and act like it was bullshit. Like, PlayStation lost me more than anything, and I was just gonna stick with my PS2 until they dropped the price, was when they said $500. And
you mean for the PS3? You mean?
Yes, PS3.
Dude, I remember.
No, but I stuck with the PS2 because I was a PlayStation gamer. I loved PlayStation.
Yeah. Oh,
you know
I get you. I get you. So your progression in your mind was that you were gonna jump from the 2 to PlayStation 3, and the Xbox 360 was just an aftersight, and Gears is what won you over.
Yes.
Gotcha.
Oh, you got it right to the T. Jesus, like, you're damn good at that.
No, I mean, dude, well, I am an investigator. That is my day job. So so I kind of put stuff together. But the thing is that like you, many people, right, during that generation, in my own inner circle, right, I remember that the 360 is the console that turned me into a quote unquote hardcore gamer. What do I mean by that? I started paying attention to the industry. Before, I was only paying attention to games and game magazines and what games are coming out. I actually started learning about the industry, and that's, funny enough, I was having this conversation with my wife the other day. I love gaming, dude. I mean, obviously, we all do, but what I really get, that itch, right? That I just want to wake up and see what's happening in the industry and stuff like that. It's just, I like these chess moves that these companies make, man. I like the speculation of it all. I like to know, that, hey, what can Xbox be planning here? I kind of, it's kind of like my own game that I have in my head. It's kind of like a console simulator. You know what I'm saying? Like, I have these companies in my head, and I'm like, shit, man. If I was Phil, what would I do with this company?
I'll give you this little tidbit, because a lot of people don't know about this. I did not buy an Xbox One until Gears of War Ultimate Edition was announced.
Okay.
And I saw that Microsoft bought the IP from Epic.
I remember that day. Yep.
All right. It was right after, it was probably like 6 to 8 months after Judgment really failed. I mean, don't get me wrong. People Who Can Fly is a decent developer, but what they did to the multiplayer really killed the game. And that's where I go
Yeah,
and say, like, I watched the game die. I thought Gears was done forever.
I
You
got you.
understand what I'm saying? So, like, when people argue with me about that, I'm like, dude, did you play Judgment at the beginning? It was horrible. And Gears players were pissed.
I
Okay.
remember that. Yep.
Quitting immediately. I was playing Gears 3 not even like a month and a half later. Playing
I
Gears 3
think,
the whole time.
yeah, I think there was a time that Gears 3 actually the player count was surpassing Judgment, even for a new game.
It was, yeah.
Yeah,
So it's one of those things where, like, I thought it was done. And I said, well, Xbox, I'm just going to play my 360 just like I did with the PS2. Then keep
yeah,
that in mind. And then the Xbox One came out and said, oh, $500. You got to have the Kinect. And I was like, I don't want the Kinect. I just want to play the games. And
yeah,
I saw a rise and I was like, damn, this game actually looks pretty good. But then I saw the
yep.
voice controls and all that shit.
Charge.
I'm good with that.
Yeah,
I want to think about moving my fingers, not about speaking to the game, and hope that it actually works. Because I've used Kinect before on the 360 and it don't work like that. And they started rolling that stuff out before. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So I'm like, I'm good with that. $500? Hell no. And I was almost going to get a PS4. And then I saw, damn, they bought the rights to Gears.
And remember that? Do you remember that rumor for a long time? And I mean, there's code for it because I've seen it online. They were actually coding Gears of War 3 for the PS3 at one point. It almost became multi-plat. And I'm glad that Microsoft didn't allow that to happen, and they kind of kept the Gears franchise under the Microsoft umbrella, because I know that there's still code for that out there. I think that MVG or someone like that on YouTube not too long ago was showing gameplay from a PS3, and they actually had coded for it.
I'm gonna tell you right now, Gears saved Xbox multiple times. I'll tell you that right now.
Absolutely.
Dude, Ultimate Edition absolutely saved Xbox. I'm telling you right now. Like it was done, and then they brought Rod in, and I was like, okay. Like back then, I was good with Rod being there. Now you got to keep in mind, years later, I was like, yo, he's done. He's done. He wants to go on Diablo. He wants to do a different game, and that's fine. You know what I'm saying? But people were just like freaking going nuts on me, and I'm like, dude, like I'm telling you. And what happened with Hive Busters? Okay, which I called, by the way. I said
that shit was awesome.
A single player story-driven DLC like they used to do in Gears 3 with Ram Shadow. Okay, Ram Shadow is one of the greatest DLCs ever devised. I'm sorry.
That shit was awesome.
There's nothing else that even compares to it. You could play
You're still there?
As the freaking Locust, you could play as the freaking Cog. You know what I mean? It was so well thought out that I was like,
remember,
man, they're gonna go back to this, and people that actually played Hive Busters loved it. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, and it reminded me of that DLC, because remember with Ram, you can finally control the krill. That shit was badass. Yeah, I remember when that came out, that I was like, oh crap, you can be General Ram. That's gonna be badass. So I remember that DLC like if it was yesterday, dude. I was super excited about that.
And that's for the single player people. Like us multiplayer people, eventually Gears 3 combined the season pass holders with the regular, people. And the season pass holders that paid for a year or a year and a half ago were actually cool with it, because we just wanted more people to play with. You know what I'm saying?
Do you think that Gears, all right, I was on K Mega's podcast a few weeks back. The Mooch was there. We were having a conversation around we were having a conversation around Gears. And how'd you feel about the new characters being introduced to Gears 4 and 5 to the franchise? Did you think that they kind of dropped the ball? Because I personally did, right? I felt I felt something weird, Crispy. Like when I first played Gears 4 and we got introduced to this whole new cast. Dude, I'm not gonna lie to you. I came around by the end of the game. I accepted the characters. I'm like, all right, I'm cool. I loved it. It was a home run. But at first, I was like, shit, dude, who the fuck are these people? You know what I'm saying? I'm like, who are these people? Like, I don't want to be JD. I don't want to be Cat. I don't want to be, this other dude, Cole, or I'm not Cole, JD, or what's going on here? You know what I'm saying? And then it grew on me. I accepted the story.
Yeah, I get what you're saying.
You get what I'm saying? But I kind of wish that they would have transitioned in a way that God of War did, which was introduce Atreus in a game. Because can you imagine if God of War, this next one coming up?
They did that.
Did they? Did they? Did I miss
JD?
something?
JD.
Yeah.
JD is Marcus's son.
Right. But did I miss something where it just came out of nowhere? Like part 4 is you're JD all grown up. And in Gears 3, I remember when the game ended, they did show kind of like if there was going to be a thing between Marcus and Anya, but where did JD come from? Where was that part?
Okay. Man,
and maybe that's in here, brother.
You're disappointing me right now because if you're gonna read all the comics and everything
else, but the thing is, I haven't read them. I haven't read them.
JD. Okay, so there's an experimental program that because if you understand, even through Gears 3, Anya cannot have children. She is barren. Okay, so there's an experimental program which she ended up losing her life because of down the road. That Jin, who was a scientist, who is now the head at the time, is saying, hey, this is how you can get. And she was one of the first, I believe, the first to be experimentally, having a child, basically being barren.
Got it.
And this is because the emulsion, by the way. So the fact is that she bare the child, she had the child, that was JD, and then she passed. And it was natural. Okay. It was basically because of the experiment. Okay. But at the same time, JD is there. And that's why I give Gears 5 credit, because in Act 4, the choice, and you have to look at Gears 4 and say the love that Kate gives to nature and everything else is completely embedded in her. Because if you look at the Queen and how she's acted over her entire existence, through the entire Gears games at the least, she is wholeheartedly loving what has become of the Locust, how they've mutated, how they become naturally immune to certain situations. And there's a point in time where they come up and say, we can't deal with the mutations of the world itself. And a lot of people don't realize this, but the COG and their predecessors and everything else have been taking the emulsion and using it as fuel. If it stayed put, maybe it wouldn't have done what it did, but it's an organism. So if you think about it this way, if that organism feels attacked, and if you're going to take an organism and burn it, that organism, it's going to defend itself. So it took other people, including the stranded, everything else, all these different things that are involved. And it really comes down to, she is still a human being. She is the Queen, but as you've always seen her, she looks like a human being because she was experimenting with these things and felt it was wrong. So Gears at its core is a constant fight between what's right and what's wrong. And a lot of people don't understand that. But if you look at Kate and the way they transpired through Gears 5 and the uncle and everything else, you know what I'm saying? Uncle. And then if you played it one way, you got a different way than the other. If you played it co-op, my God, you'd watch somebody kill their own uncle. And it was by far, like, some of those parts of that game were just like seared in my head. Like Dell or JD, which one do you choose?
Yeah.
You know
Who
what I'm
did you
saying?
choose?
And it was,
Who'd you choose, dude?
I chose Dell.
Wow, I chose JD.
Dell
Wait, did you
loves
choose?
her.
Did you choose Dell to live or to die? I'm sorry, I wasn't specific.
Live.
Oh, I did too. Yeah, I chose JD to. Yep, I killed JD on my run.
But that's because of what happened to JD. If you look at when his arm, he got hit by the quill, and then, you know, like, his arm was like, they just basically like encased it. You know what I'm saying? Like, he had part of the swarm in him. The swarm is a microorganism that has developed from just the emulsion into something like even bigger. And that's what a lot of people don't understand. Like Gears is so in depth that you just have to kind of weed through it and realize that, you know, it's the same thing. It's like if you go there and like a butterfly flies in your mouth and it takes over your brain. That type of stuff. You know what I mean? Like, that's where they're going with it. And it's very, like, you know, nonchalant. It's like, oh, what do you mean? What is this? But at the same time, that's to keep you engaged.
Absolutely, yeah. And if you really think about it, right, the first 3 games, which obviously to the diehards like me and you, dude, it's always gonna have a special place in our hearts, and it's kind of hard to kind of replace, you know, the old favorites and all that. But thank you so much for filling me in on that stuff, dude. And that's why details like that, Crispy, are why I want to deep dive into these books and into these comics and play all the games again, because Gears, like I mentioned before, it's a franchise that I want to appreciate because of just the universe that they have built, you know, and that's something that I feel like that's lacking on my part. It is my favorite franchise to play on Xbox, but again, I want to know those details, which is why it's a goal of mine to really go knee deep in the lore. You know what I'm saying? To understand all those details. But Crispy, let's transition, brother, to our final topic here. Talk, you know, some acquisitions this year. Um, however you want to handle this, brother. I mean, the way that I look at it, we can talk about what Microsoft did and then what Sony did, how they responded, vice versa. If you just want to focus on one, brother, I'll kind of let you decide there how you want to handle this acquisition. Do you want to look at it from Microsoft's perspective? Do you want to look at it just from your perspective? How do you want to take this one?
It's going to be my perspective, but Sony reacted in some way, shape, or form. You have to understand that at the end of the day, Microsoft is putting IPs like Elder Scrolls, Fallout, Doom. These IPs, they have already said, are going to be exclusive. Starfield, exclusive. Okay. You know, Sony, because everybody's like into this huge debate, like the Activision deal happened and then Sony already had that transpired. I agree with that because, you know, what they're looking to do is something that's not Godfall or Destruction All Stars. You know what I'm saying? Because they tried to make multiplayer games and it didn't work. And Godfall's apparently at some point, which I just don't think it's going to happen, is going to eventually come to Xbox because it's technically a third-party timed exclusive. But it's one of those things where I'm like, nobody's going to care at that point. And I think Sony's starting to see that. And then they look at Bungie and they're like, well, Bungie's not playing the same game we are. And they go and buy them, but let them have whatever they want. And a lot of people are like,
Yeah.
how dare you do that? Like I've seen like, and it's just like with Xbox and them saying Call of Duty is going to be multi-plat. Like, you know, people act the same either way. And I look at both of them and I say, oh, they're playing ball. And I'm gonna tell you something right now, and this is gonna be exclusively for you.
What's
Okay.
that?
Amazon's gonna buy somebody big.
Whoa.
And they're gonna buy it by the end of the year.
Wow.
And this is not anything that anybody's told me. This is completely off my intuition. They've been playing ball too much with Jeff Keighley. Microsoft, number one, is looking at Amazon and saying they ain't playing. And also, they've been pretty high on the Steam charts for the games that come out with, by the way. So just watch out for Amazon. It's not going to be Google. Google with Stadia, they're probably going to keep it open for a while. They might grow it organically, as we like to call it nowadays. Organically.
That marketing term, bullshit narrative term.
But
you want to know, dude, you want to know something? You just hit me with something right now, because I think that Google, right? I think that how they're going to leverage this whole Stadia thing. I think that they're going to, because I've already started seeing kind of reports out there. I think that they're just going to license this software, man, this streaming software to whoever wants it. You know, like if right now, even if Microsoft, let's say that they can't get xCloud to the point that they want it.
But here's the only issue I have with that is Google's cloud is actually far worse than AWS and Microsoft's cloud. Microsoft's cloud is used through Office, freaking Microsoft 365, all these things. Like it is constantly there. Yes, they're going to tell you got to delete your emails or something, but it's constantly there. The investment way back when they spent $200 million, to get xCloud, basically has been Azure servers. Okay. Was a huge investment and it has helped them a lot. Amazon is the one that can play ball, and it's not Google. Google has their search engine. They have all these things that are like intricate. YouTube is huge. We all know this. Okay. Like they have their investments, but Amazon seems to be more in the gaming space than Google. And you think about it, I'll say one word: Twitch.
Yeah. They know, and they also know which games draw the highest views and shit like that. So I wouldn't be surprised if your prediction comes true, that they go after one of these companies, that's producing one of these high-rated, highly viewed games.
I feel like they're going to go after Take-Two or EA.
Okay. I can definitely see that happening. It would, if you really think about it, whoever can acquire a license like Grand Theft Auto, they're automatically in the conversation. You know what I'm saying? Because
especially
that game is
in the
so
PC
big.
Space. Think about it. Red Dead, dude, I see mods all over the place. Amazon will allow that to happen. They're not going to be like Google. They're not going to charge you for a subscription and then tell you to buy the game as well. Even that it might be at a discount, but you're still buying the game as well. They're not going to do that. They're going to say, hey, become a Prime member. If you want Prime gaming or whatever, you pay $120 instead of $70. You know what I'm saying? Like,
that makes sense.
They could do that. Like, they're at a different level. And I think that's why you're going to see PlayStation and Microsoft play much nicer. I'm just telling you, we're starting to see it. But Phil said, hey, I had a great conversation. And then all of a sudden, Bungie. Okay. So they might have told Phil, and Phil ain't going to say a damn word. Hey, we're going to buy Bungie. And we're like, oh. He's like, I'm cool with it. Like, I'd rather you buy it than Amazon. You
Yeah.
know what I'm saying? Like,
Can I give you a hot take that I got a little bit of heat for on Twitter?
go ahead, dude.
I look. Again, common sense will tell you that Sony didn't make this deal overnight with Bungie. Everybody knows that. That's common sense. That's not how acquisitions work. But I did make it known that I firmly believe, no one can tell me different in my mind unless you show me the official paperwork, that the reason dude, the timing of that Bungie announcement 1 week right after Microsoft drops the bomb of Activision. I'm sorry, there's no one that can tell me different, Crispy. I believe that the talks were, I believe what the press release, that what it came out that they said, oh, this has been in the works for many months, 5 months, 7 months, whatever the number they decided to give. But I do believe 100% that the price and the terms were 100% finalized after Microsoft made that announcement. Okay. I firmly believe that Sony got put in a position where they're like, holy shit, this caught us completely off guard. Call of Duty is our money maker. Call of Duty, if Xbox even entertains the idea of taking Call of Duty away from us, we're going to be in big trouble here because we haven't invested in these multiplayer experiences like they have. Our games as a service is lacking, sorely behind. And I think that they understood the importance of securing the deal, which I mean, think about this, Crispy. Sony's largest acquisition ever that they made as well. Okay. On top of that, all of the agreements and contingencies that are with the signing of Bungie. When, in your wild mind, when would you ever think that Sony would give such freedom to any developer they were buying? When has that ever happened? Never. And they're like, oh, you want to make games multi-plat? Go ahead. And you want to announce it on the press conference? Go ahead, dude. It's completely out of the norm and out of character. And I don't care what nobody says. That that line, that dotted line was signed after Microsoft made the announcement because Sony finally said, shit, now we don't have a choice. We have to sign Bungie. We were in negotiations. We were trying probably to get our way. We were probably trying to play hardball a little bit, make some, sacrifices here and there for both sides. But they basically said, let's get this deal done right now because there's no other choice. That's my opinion. I know that a mega corporation with billions doesn't
help
do
you with
things
this
overnight.
opinion because I agree with it. If you think about it, and a lot of people don't realize, Bungie, you gotta go at the heartstrings of the CEO, and you would say Satya. No, for gaming, it is Phil, and Phil plays a lot of Destiny.
Yeah, that's his game. That's his game.
Sony probably had this in the works and was talking to them. I'll give anybody that. But at the end of the day, Sony looked at it and said, well, you just bought Activision. Screw it, we'll overpay. And that's what a lot of people, including myself, I mean, if you look at it, $7 billion for all the IPs involved in Bethesda. And you could go and say Activision 70 something billion when it's all said and done. You could look at that and say, oh, how dare they? But you got Crash there. You got old IPs, you got new IPs, you got IPs that like 80% of developers haven't touched because you got to push out a Call of Duty every year. You know what I'm saying? So
yep.
I've said this and I'll say it again. Microsoft is in the business right now of buying IP. And for example, I'm telling you right now, I feel it in my bones. A new Vegas 2 is going to come out and it's going to be developed in partnership Bethesda and Obsidian. One or the other is going to have the name on it.
That's gonna
and
be
they're
sweet.
going to do it because there's too much on the Western side. It's going to happen. It might be Fallout 5, as people like to call it. It might be that, okay? Because the New California Republic, you haven't touched that story. And if you read if you even watch the cartoons or the freaking, just, photoshopped shit, like there's a lot of story there and it hasn't been touched. I mean, New
Yes.
Vegas was the only one that touched the western side of the United States. You have no clue. And then you can combine it with Fallout 5, the actual Fallout 5, and have, this whole freaking spiel. Like, there are so many, like, relevant aspects. And it really comes down to, especially for Bethesda, to look at, Starfield, and they're bringing in a new engine for this game. This game has to be good enough. It doesn't have to be perfect. It doesn't have to be great. It has to be good enough that people get absorbed just like they would in a Fallout or anything else. And that's where Fallout 76 lost some of its luster for some people like myself. I
Yeah.
actually enjoyed playing by myself. I actually enjoyed, interacting with the NPCs. And it lost its luster very quickly, and I didn't want to go back. Apparently, it's better now, but you've lost your luster. You know what I mean? You got to go back. Hey, I'll tell you right now, Fallout 76, if it was 2, 3, 4 player co-op with your friends, I'll tell you right now, that game would have been fire. You know what I'm
And
saying?
yeah, and a deal like this makes it possible because Bethesda now has the luxury of Microsoft's backing to work on passion projects, to work on things that people are genuinely excited about. And I was playing the other about 2 nights ago. I was playing. Do you remember that Wolfenstein DLC that came out? The old something, the old blood or something like that. I
New
never
Blood, maybe. I don't know.
I forgot. I don't know. No, not the one with the daughters with the girls. It was a DLC that came out for the original Wolfenstein game. I think it's called The Old Blood, and then like you're going through Castle Wolfenstein or whatever. But to go back to my point, can you imagine if all of a sudden now a deal like this, allows Microsoft to say, hey, the id tech guys, machine games are passionate about making a Call of Duty. How refreshing that would be to have a Call of Duty game with developed by machine games and on that id tech software to run as smooth as Doom and Wolfenstein. These are just the possibilities, the endless
Well,
possibilities of
I
how
mean, you think
of
about it
what they
this
have now.
way. You think about it this way, take Tango Gameworks and people say, "Oh, let them do Scalebound." No, you gotta let Tango Gameworks do Scalebound, and they were gonna put their heart and soul in it. Because I'll tell you right now, ZeniMax, I'll give them damn good credit. The people that they have in there, the people that they have developed, I haven't seen any leave, to be honest. You know what I'm saying? The people that they have there, they enjoy the game they're building. And
Yeah.
that's the point. So,
Yep.
hypothetically, I'm going to tell you right now, the greatest game in the next 10 years is going to be Hellblade 2.
Ooh,
And
okay.
I look at that and I say, okay, you want to hit the single player people in the heartstrings? Yeah. But you want to hit the multiplayer? I'll tell you right now, those voices I heard in that trailer, bar none, like exactly what I thought with Hellblade 1, but the visuals, man.
Yeah. You want
Holy
to kill a
crap.
narrative? You want to kill a narrative right now as this podcast is going on? The narrative going around that Microsoft and consolidation, this is not, this is going to lead to ruin and it's going to be a bad thing and we're all going to regret this. Hellblade 2, again, just a hot take on my part, my own opinion again. Hellblade 2 does not look like it does it have the scope and is not going to be the game that it's going to be if Microsoft does not acquire Ninja Theory. Bottom
Ninja
line.
Theory has no, like, I'm gonna tell you right now, they're the darling. They tweet whatever they want. They show whatever they want. Think about it. Think about it. Like, this is how good this game's gonna be. I'm gonna tell you right now, the heart and soul of that entire team, which has been there since they were acquired, are going to be put in this game. And I'll tell you right now, they already said it's gonna make Hellblade 1 look like an indie game.
It
Think
already
about
does,
that.
dude. I mean, that trailer blew everybody away.
No,
And
but think about that. But like gameplay wise, you know what I'm saying?
yeah,
Because a
no.
lot of people, you could have that argument, fine. But when the actual developer goes and says something like that, I say watch what they do.
Dude, I knew that trailer hit number one because I saw it with my own eyeballs and I can make my own decisions. You know what I'm saying? But number two, I like to watch like Crispy. I like to see different perspectives and kind of scope, like get everything together and kind of see where everybody's coming from. You know what I'm saying? That's why I listen to many podcasts. I like to see all angles, of a situation or of something. And uh, you even had, I forgot which PlayStation centric channel. It's a guy I was watching. The dude was going crazy over Hellblade 2. The dude even went as far to say this game makes Horizon look like a video game. And that's a PlayStation centric gamer. And I give him kudos for saying that. That takes balls, dude, because again, he's not worried about looking however to his fans or whatever. He's just speaking the truth, and the thing is that just goes to show you, and I agree, when that trailer came out, dude, Horizon, I don't even know the name of the new one coming out, Horizon Forbidden West. I don't know the name of it. It made that game look like a video game, and Horizon looked amazing when they revealed it. That reveal trailer, that shit was nuts. I remember I saw it, I go, wow, that looks great. But dude, it's just this Horizon. I mean, this Hellblade game, it's on a whole other level, Crispy. I agree with you 100%, man.
Oh, dude, I'm telling you right now, like Ninja Theory ain't playing no games. Like, it's one of those things. Like, I see all, like, I follow them. I see all their tweets and everything. Like, this is Microsoft letting them do what they want, and that's kind of crazy because I'm not used to that. I'm really not.
Yeah,
You know what I mean?
yeah,
I'm used to Microsoft, holding down, as long as it's not offensive or anything like that. Microsoft will let you do whatever you want. Like
right.
Obsidian, like some of the best trailers we see, like Outer Worlds 2, like that it was a trailer. It was completely, CGI and everything else. Like, it was just, but it was hilarious, the commentary. You know what I'm saying?
Do
Like,
you
it just,
do you agree, right? Because we're talking about the landscape of these acquisitions, right? Do you agree with Microsoft? I mean, look, we both know why they're saying what they're saying. They want the deal to get done. That's obvious. That's common sense. They need this deal to get done,
yep.
right? And they're coming out saying things like, "Hey, Call of Duty's going multi-platform," all that good stuff. Are you surprised by that they will make Call of Duty multi-plat? Or in your mind, as soon as you heard the deal, did you think, hey, Call of Duty staying exclusive now because they bought that shit? You know what I'm saying? Like, where were you now that you understand what's happening? You understand what's happening. Hey, it's going to be multi-platform. I understand the reasons. They need to pass regulation, all that shit. But when you first heard it, did you think it was going to be exclusive?
I do believe on either Next or BWB, I said that, I look at it this way, like, from what they said at that point in time was that, they're going to honor existing contracts. Other than that, I said, well, it depends on regulation. It depends on how they're, affected by it.
Yeah.
And the one
Yeah.
thing that I argued with people on Twitter, because I said what I said, I was actually disappointed when they actually did it, that, Xbox gamers are like, well, supposed Xbox gamers were like, I'm going to sell my console because this is stupid.
Yeah,
And
it's taking it a little too far.
I said, you sound like a certain person that I just don't particularly like.
Yeah.
And a lot of them, it wasn't just one person singularly. It was a lot of them. And I was like, you do realize that Microsoft's going to make a ton of money, just like they did with freaking Minecraft off of this. Like, are you serious? Also, why in God's name would Microsoft, possibly, especially with the FTC get involved, okay, to sit there and say we shouldn't do this, even though it's the highest selling game on any platform for the past like 5 to 7 years, give or take. What's the logic in that? And
Yeah.
to think about it this way, if you think about it, Microsoft puts out a really, really good Call of Duty, with Activision playing on every console. And y'all know it's the home of Call of Duty now.
Right.
And you can get it on Game Pass for $15.
Right. And you want to know something else? And you want to know something else to piggyback on what you're saying? What about the fact that now Microsoft doesn't have the pressure that Activision has as a corporation to put out a Call of Duty every year? Now they can put it on the shelf 1 year, yes, 1 year, no. It could be a 2-year cycle. It could be a 3-year cycle. Microsoft now kind of can control that, because Activision, that was their lifeblood. They needed a Call of Duty every year. Microsoft is not in that position.
Think of it this way, okay? You got Fable, Avowed, you got the next Elder Scrolls, you got Starfield, you got all of these games that people don't consider single player, but a lot of what I just said are technically single player as of now. And you think about the world building, how you go about it. Like, dude, I do love Fallout 4. Like, it had great elements to it, but the story was lost, and that's where it drove me nuts. Like, eventually it was just like build, make sure that this community is good and this community is good. And all of a sudden I'm like, dude, I haven't technically gotten through half the game, and I'm like, dude, I spent like 100 hours on this. You know what I mean? Like, that's what it feels like, so they have to find the fine line. And if you think about Overwatch, if you think about Call of Duty, all these other games, like, it's microtransaction city. They don't have to do a damn thing. They can release both games, because those are 2 huge multiplayer games that are on PlayStation. They can release both games on PlayStation and nobody's going to give a shit. Okay? When it's all said and done, the actual gamers that play those games, they don't give a shit. And you know what? You could say it's nothing. It's nothing. Well, everybody talks about Steam numbers and how they go. Well, I'll tell you right now, Overwatch has a shit ton of people playing that game still today.
Especially in South Korea. Yeah,
and they're coming out with the second iteration of it. And it doesn't have to be exclusive. The point is who's gonna buy it. And that's why, and a lot of people ignore this, Bethesda ZeniMax is talking to Matt Booty. Activision Blizzard, when it's all said and done, is talking to Phil Spencer, because they got Candy Crush. They got all of the King is a huge mobile company.
Everybody laughs. Dude. Like, even myself, I just giggled right now when you said Candy Crush, but dude, it's a fucking juggernaut. I'm here laughing at it, and I'm like, shit, you know what? Everybody,
but you know what? That's never been my type of game. But I'll tell you something right now. My girlfriend plays it every once in a while.
My girl was playing it the other day. Yep.
It's one of those things that it's like, it might not be for me, but it's for her. And I'll tell you right now, like I told you at the beginning, she whoops my ass in MK. I don't know where it comes from, but man, you give her Jade, she fucking trashes my ass. You know what I'm saying?
My wife will pop Candy Crush every now and then, and dude, it has that engagement, right? Crispy, one of the things that I said the other day on the show I was on was that I think that this has many layers to it, right? So all these guys and girls, that you'll see on Twitter writing these weird, outlooks on a deal like this, they're looking at it because I think that they kind of want a sticking point to stick it to that Sony fan base and to say, Call of Duty's ours, and now you need to buy an Xbox whether you like it or not, or a PC or whatever. I think that they're trying to get that, that instant.
They're standing on their plastic box. Let's be honest.
Exactly. And the thing is that I think that I saw a lot of arguments that, hey, you know what? It's only fitting because PlayStation for a long time has signed these exclusive deals, taking away, Final Fantasy remake from Xbox. All that stuff is true. Hiding Spider-Man behind the MCU, that they had that advantage that they want, that they made a deal with Marvel, like, hey, if you want to keep Spider-Man in the MCU, we need to renegotiate here, and you need to help us on the PlayStation side. Can we have Spider-Man exclusive for us and other Marvel characters if Spider-Man does really well? And yeah, at the end of the day, Sony needs to play to their strengths, and that type of negotiation is their strengths. But I want to say that not that I understand, dude. I just kind of see where some of these guys and girls are coming from, where they're like, finally, now we have something to brag about to the Sony fan base, since they've been curb stomping us for years and years and years. But this is apples and oranges. Guys, this is so much bigger than that. Microsoft didn't make the acquisition just for you guys, just to have a sticking point. For everyone that Crispy that came out and told you that they're going to sell their Xboxes, you guys need to grow up, man. You know what I'm saying? Like, if that's what it takes for you to get upset.
But the way I look at it is, you're not a true Xbox fan. And
yeah,
the one example I can give right now is that Sony's trying to take those gaming IPs and make them movie status. Think about it. Uncharted about to come out. Okay. Last of Us supposedly come out. Also Twisted Metal, which I'm interested to see who the hell is going to do that, because that would be fun. But I mean, I don't know. Like, I feel like James Gunn is just damn good at that shit. Like that.
Yeah, he is.
It's one of those things, like, right now, I think Microsoft's looking at the actual movie or TV show space and being like, you know what? We can develop these characters that we already have, like Master Chief, and get new people engaged in the community we've already had. But I think Microsoft's got a little step ahead in a weird way. Like, they don't have anything really invested in it. Like, it's not like Spider-Man. Spider-Man was derived from comics. A lot of people don't realize that. Like,
right.
It's like it was derived from comics, and it turned into the MCU, and it turned into Sony buying the rights to Spider-Man and the Spider-Man universe from Marvel. And that's the only reason why they have a leg to stand on right now.
And I'm sorry to say, and I'm going to give you another hot take. The only reason that this newest Spider-Man movie is close to $2 billion is because it's set in the MCU world. If it was still on the Sonyverse, this movie wouldn't have made that much money, guys.
And I agree with you completely, because if you ever watch What If, I'll tell you, Kevin Feige and Jon Favreau are just, man, those guys are creators, man. Like, they're so, like, Jon Favreau as a director, I mean, some of the best movies I've ever seen is from him.
Yeah,
And
he's
they
really
might be
good.
corny, they might be funny, they might be like totally like out of the box, but man, that guy continues to deliver and he loves the MCU. He
He
loves
does.
it.
Yeah,
You
he
know what I
loves the source
mean?
material.
Yes.
You know,
And the
so
source material is the Sabretooth comic I bought way back in the day that I still have. That's got the freaking, the holographic metallic freaking cover and everything else. Like,
oh shit.
you know what I'm saying? Like it's one of those crazy things that's like if you don't understand, you don't understand, but he makes you understand. You know what I'm
Yeah,
saying? Like
yeah.
he makes you say, "Hey, look at this." And it really comes down to, Iron Man. I mean, the original Iron Man really like it was so well done. I think it was Ridley Scott or somebody. I don't
If
remember
that
who.
this has been on record, if that movie failed, there would be no MCU.
Mhm.
That first movie needed to hit, and it did big time. It spawned the whole MCU universe. You
And
know,
it was like Kevin Feige. I mean, he might have been not where he is now, but I mean, he was probably one of those voices in the back of some CEO's head. Like, we could do this. We could make something incredible. And I mean, even Endgame and Infinity War, I was well impressed. Like, I was like, man, like,
dude, that was a dream come true. You know, because to appreciate, how far they took that. Crispy, growing up, I went through the horrible George Clooney Batman movies, through the cheesy ass Captain America movie where he's on a motorcycle in the 70s. There were some Punisher movies that were okay. Blade was always cool, but man, the cheese fest that you would go see a comic book movie like the Fantastic Four, and it was a fucking joke. And
yep.
just the way that the MCU just elevated that genre. They just, Kevin Feige,
Don't
same
get me
way.
wrong. Like Thor Dark World. I was like, what the fuck is this shit?
Yeah, that was a misstep. That was definitely a misstep. But it to
Ragnarok was, oh my
yeah.
god, one of
But
the greatest movies I've ever seen.
to
Like, it
give them
was
credit though,
so entertaining. Like,
yeah,
it
that shit was
was
awesome.
it was just it was just one of those movies like you look at it and you say like, hey, I know him. Like, I was like
He's a friend. He's a friend from work. That shit
I
was
was I
awesome,
was
dude.
dying, dude. Like, and that's something that, like, like, regardless of like how many times I was like, I don't like this movie that much. The MCU always brought it back together. And it was like,
Dude, but you want to know something?
man,
By the end of Endgame, you kind of appreciated Thor. The drink's getting to me. Thor: The Dark World more because of just the story that they told about Thor. So you kind of appreciated that movie even more, and they turned their dud into kind of like they kind of elevated that as well. You know what I'm saying?
yeah, it's one of those things that I give him credit. And I mean, that's where I go and say the acquisition talk and everything else. Like, Disney did it right. Like, even like if you look at the Mandalorian or Boba Fett, like, dude, like, those shows are so damn good to like connect the dots and
Yeah.
really you understand. And keep in mind, like, these stories really haven't been truly told. So for them to like bring it once again, Kevin Feige was there. You know what I'm saying? Like this dude loves like the IPs that Disney has, and Disney's paying him a shit ton of money
Oh
because
yeah, they
he's
need to, dude.
damn good. He's
He's the
damn
he
good.
dude, he's the glue that holds that shit together. He's definitely, and Phil has kind of, to transition back to the gaming, landscape. That Phil has become that glue that holds Xbox together, dude, in the same way that Kevin Feige does. So, Crispy, let's finish off, man. I want to ask you one more question. Well, I want to ask you two more questions before we go, right? But the first one to finish off the acquisition talk, do you do you think that now realistically we know that Xbox can still make purchases, right? It's not like they can't. It's not like they're handcuffed, but they kind of are, because are they willing to risk anything at this point to not get that deal done? I wouldn't think so. So do you think that we're going to see another acquisition here from the big three, Nintendo, Sony, or Xbox in the next, before the year closes out, before 2023 comes around? You think we're going to hear about other acquisitions, or did right now, are they kind of recovering the wallet right now?
That's tough to say. Like I said, I feel like
And I know you can't predict the future, so
CBS is one of the last Paramount. Paramount is actually what they are, but CBS is one of the last standing broadcasting systems that are still technically what we call independent. The Paramount, I'm gonna tell you right now, if Halo blows up, Microsoft might be looking to buy Paramount.
wow, okay. I haven't heard that. I haven't heard that
doesn't
before.
blow up, they're just gonna partner with them. It's one of those weird things, which I feel like the hype involved, the way they did it with the AFC Championship game, you have 20 plus million people was watching that game.
Go into it though. What's the advantage of Microsoft doing that though? Why would they want to?
You have to
acquire that?
There are people like, not my girlfriend, but my exes or something like that don't understand that there's a story involved into gaming. You understand what I'm saying? So you build that relationship with people that, not only, stay for season 1, but season 2. And, you build that relationship, and then you go and say, okay, well, you do realize there's a game here that does the same thing. It can get people involved in gaming the never any way that they thought. And that's where I go and say Microsoft has an advantage because they've been developing even past beyond what people thought multiplayer and single player games. And the single player can have a story. It's really good. It's driven. You know what I mean? Like story driven narrative. It's there if you play the single player part of it. But you also have the multiplayer where you go and say, hey, I'm this character. I love this character. I'm going to play as this character and I'm going to mess you up. You know what I'm saying?
So in other words, let me see if I can kind of go into your brain here. Do you think that that's called the Witcher effect that Netflix saw? Okay, so
you have to have the right actors though, and also you can't go too far away from what the game is. But at the same time, I love The Witcher on Netflix. Oh my god, I mean, so good, really is. Like,
so what you're saying? So is it safe to say that kind of like what you're angling this from, if you're Microsoft, is that you believe that if you bring out these high quality, well thought of stories and series based around the games, that audience can be drawn in to the gaming part of it, and then they could feed off each other? Is that the strategic point that Microsoft will make that acquisition?
Absolutely.
Yeah. That makes a lot of sense. I haven't heard that.
They already have it in place. Like all right, I get it. Like some people don't like this show, but Yellowstone, okay,
I haven't watched it.
Yellowstone is an amazing show, and I've been watching 1883. That's the beginning part of it, because actually they sold the rights to Yellowstone to Peacock, which Peacock is NBC. A lot of people don't realize that. Okay. But they sold the rights to it until the show goes through its a 3-4 year span. It's something like that. It's almost like, Sony with their time exclusives. So they sold the rights to that, but they already brought out Paramount Plus. and I've watched the COVID special from South Park. I love South Park, by the way. South Park is so wild, but if you understand
You gotta
what they're
appreciate it.
saying, you have
Absolutely.
to appreciate it. And that's
Yep.
something that, you know, I look at TV show and I'm like, man, this Halo thing, like people are like, oh, he has an AK-47. I was like, well, to be honest, like there's a lot of stranded or whatever you want to call them that just sit there and they get a weapon and they grab it and they shoot it. Like, let's be honest here. You know what I mean? Like people are over analyzing shit.
Yeah.
I'm like, Paramount is pretty damn good at what they do. Like the most shows that I've watched from them are pretty damn good. Like the originals, or even, you know, partnering with like people like South Park. Like, dude, it's kind of weird, but if you actually think about what they're saying, it's like, man, this is some deep shit. You know what I'm
Yeah.
saying?
Yeah.
And that's what I feel like with a lot of the shows. And I was like, the first thing I said, they said Paramount Plus, and I was like, man, this is going to be good. Watch, this is going to be
And
really
look,
good.
I saw the trailer and I thought it looked promising. I think that the effects look pretty it I saw some people say that it looked a little CW-ish, you know, with the effects, you know, and I guess that they're comparing it to shows like The Flash and Arrow and all that shit. I guess that's where they're coming from. But I saw it and I thought it looked very solid. I think it's definitely going to be the highest production quality Halo product to come out on you know, on TV, you know, or a movie aspect. And I think it looks promising, dude. And I think that as long as they tell a good story, they're going to be fine. You know, they need to really focus on telling a good story and really try their damnedest to try to portray the relationship between Master Chief and Cortana, because if you really think about it, to me, in my opinion, that's really what makes me really appreciate Halo. It's really the story of Master Chief and Cortana, and if they can do that, dude, and they can really grab the audience that way, I think they're gonna have a hit on their hands.
That's why a lot of people are hating that Jen Taylor doesn't look blue. And I'm like, no, you have to go after the audience that doesn't know that she's blue.
Right.
That
She has to portray.
She's just a completely artificial intelligence that tells Chief in some way what to do. Not all the
Right.
time. Sometimes he disagrees with her. You know what I
Right.
mean? Like I've played enough Halo. Like I haven't played all of the Halos. I'm not a superb Halo fan, but I also understand that, you know, her character is so integral, and for some people to see her blue would actually hurt them and they wouldn't
That's
watch
true.
it.
That's a good
You
point.
know,
And yeah, that's a good point. And one that I can compare that to is, you know, for these, since we were talking about Marvel, right? When they introduced Thanos in the comic books, if you read through the stories and even the Infinity Gauntlet and all that good stuff, Thanos is enamored. He's in love with Mistress Death. That's the reason that he's trying to even acquire the Infinity Stones in it, which are called the Infinity Gems in the comic books. But that's the whole reason why he's doing what he's doing. He wants to please Mistress Death in the comic books. I can understand how in the movies they changed it up. And they changed it up to kind of tell a story. So I love what you're saying, because that's true. I didn't think about that. That's awesome that you said that. To an audience member, if they see like Chief like being, you know, not in love like in, you know, a cheesy way or anything like that, but if they see him enamored by Cortana and the chick is blue, you might ask yourself like, whoa, what the hell's wrong with this guy? And they can't relate to him. You know what I'm saying?
yes.
So that was beautifully said, dude. I'm glad you brought up that point.
Yeah, I mean, you know, I'm not sitting here acting like it's not a part of lore that she's blue and everything else, but you also have to realize Halo was developed so long ago that it was much easier to make her blue. Well, you have to understand that like there are movie developers and everything else that are using Unreal to make these games. And that's where I go and say, like, a lot of people ignore The Coalition was on Matrix. Okay. Matrix Awakens. A lot of people are like, this is the greatest thing I've ever seen for gaming. Okay. They were on there. I'm going to tell you right now, if Phoenix Collection doesn't come out, they're going to make the Coalition a support studio for Unreal, at least until Hellblade 2 comes out. And I feel like they're helping Ninja Theory make this
Could
game.
be. Yeah, I can see that.
You know what? Microsoft don't have to say a damn word. A lot of people don't realize that. They don't have to. They're all under. They've been under there for long enough. Like nobody's gonna say a damn word. You know what I mean? Like that's why I say like the easiest thing to do to make sure that you know what you're doing with UE5 is rebuild Gears 2 and 3.
Yeah. At least
You
two.
know what I mean?
At least two for sure.
You don't have to Gears 1 Ultimate Edition, you do not have to do that to. You just have to up-res it, make sure that it's running correctly. It's pretty simple, but Gears 2 and 3 require some work because UE3, I mean, UE4 was Judgment, which I'll tell you right now, that's what kept me in the game. It looked incredible. Gameplay, horrible. Absolutely
yeah, and the
horrible.
story. Yeah, and the story as well with Cole
the
and
story
and
was it was convoluted only because they basically tried to turn it into Horde for the campaign, which was just no. And then also they gave you upgrades and
with that said,
you
though,
could play.
Right, but with that said, Crispy, and I'm sorry to interrupt you, but with that said, you can appreciate the characters because of the first three games. So you kind of have that special place. You know, they have a special place in your heart that you want to see the adventure carry through.
Well, you got to look at it this way. It was one of the few games that you could change your own character's skin on the fly. Very few. Not only that, and you could look at it and say, "Oh, well, I bought the." Okay, so they're supposed to have the Santa Claus skin on Battlefield. Okay, I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about being able to change the entire skin, like it'll be a Gears logo in blue, like you're a Frost or something. You know what I mean? Like I enjoyed that part, but it was the gameplay that sucked. And that's where I always say, and I'll leave it at this: gameplay is king. It is king.
For sure.
And I'm not taking anything away from anybody that plays a single player game. Not taking anything away from that. But when you play multiplayer and you get to change like the entire aesthetic of your entire body, those things are freaking cool. You know what I mean? And I'm not talking about changing characters. I'm talking about just changing the entire look. That was the only thing that game Judgment had such a good, like, it was crazy. And there's a lot of games that still can't do that. And that's where I go and say, like, I'm telling you, like, Gears is once again going to destroy everything when Gears 6 comes out. I'm not talking about the Phoenix Collection. I'm talking about Gears 6. They're going to destroy everything. They're going to blow your freaking mind. They already learned from their mistakes from Gears 5. They're going to destroy people's narratives. And this is what I love about the gaming, the actual game that are made now. It destroys people's narratives. And it makes people understand that there's another side to the story. And that's the whole point. You know, you can hate it or you can love it. But I'll tell you right now, I can go into Gears 5 and within 10 minutes, I will find a match. That's after I boot it up and everything else. I will find a match and whatever I want to. Because the point is engagement. And a lot of people ignore this, but PlayStation's clearly going there, and
Oh
stop
yeah.
acting like people are a-holes for thinking that's more important. But also at the same time, don't trash PlayStation for going and saying we're going to partner, because it is really a partnership with
It is.
Bungie. You know what I
Absolutely.
mean? Don't
Mhm.
hate them for it. And also use Google and don't act like they bought Halo, because yeah, you're like 10 years behind.
I think that I think that those people just outed themselves with that. We got a comment here from 1970 Chrome Pony. Just got here a few ago, but always play single player in almost all games except racing ones. Yeah, for sure, dude. I love jumping on single player adventures as well. And Crispy, we've gone over a lot, man. We've hit that 3 hour mark, brother. I know that you told me you had 2.5, and we might have gone over a little bit, man. And I really do appreciate it. Crispy, the last question, brother, that I do want to ask you is because it's one that I've always wanted to ask you, believe it or not. I've already asked you what was your favorite Gears of War game. You told me Gears of War 2. As soon as that Marcus Phoenix collection gets announced, I'll be tagging you, and I want your reaction, brother. We got to do another show to just get a reaction from you on that. But what? All right, think about this one long and hard before you answer. Okay, favorite Gears character out of the whole universe. It could be whoever, brother. Tell me who and why.
Oh man, you want me to
I
think
know.
long and hard too.
It's like picking a child, dude.
It's got to be Anya.
Oh, wow. Dude, you threw a curveball at me. Tell me why.
Anya is so wholehearted in the way, like even in the games, like if you played Gears 2, Gears 3, Gears 1, like she's always the voice of reason. But especially in Gears 3, she became a badass to me.
Oh, yeah.
And she became something that she was telling Marcus what to do. And that was something special to me, because really in gaming, never experienced a female protagonist. We all knew she was a good guy, you know what I mean, as so to speak, but she was so special in how the dialogue was done and everything else. And maybe that's part of the reason, like when I knew she was gone and everything else, like I got into Gears 4 and I was like, well, Kate is the same way. And if you go to the end of Gears 5, you know that she still loves the people that are around her. And she still loves, you know, how hard she fought and everything else, and what she'd done. You know what I mean? And that's where I'm like, you know, you could say it's crazy, like, no, but Anya was always the protagonist. She was always the voice of reason. And it's just sad that people don't understand that. And Marcus, he wouldn't be where he was or is or whatever you want to call it if not for her. And that's something that I look at.
That's awesome. That's awesome, dude. And that's a great perspective to look at Anya. I mean, I know that Anya playing through the games for me, she was I can definitely see what you mean by that voice of reason. Even recording the gameplay for this video, right? For us to have some gameplay on the background. She was there from the very beginning, dude. You know, that Carmine got sniped right next to her, and she, you know, just snapped out of it real quick, and she was right back in the mission, you know, when all hell was breaking loose. And I definitely, that's why, like I said, dude, and this is the third time I'm going to repeat this on this podcast. That's why I want to go through all this source material, man, to really appreciate all these characters, because they really build something special here, you know. And I think that a lot of gamers, this is a franchise that if you really understand the characters and really understand the world and the lore, it could rival, you know, the top franchises in all of gaming, in my opinion. You know, so Crispy, thank you so much, brother. where can people find you, Crispy? Where can they follow you? Just give some insight on the next show you're going to be on and stuff like that.
It's been a pleasure. Just enjoy talking to you.
Thank you.
Really awesome. At Christopher Bomb on Twitter, Christopher Bomb 28 Xbox Live. You find me at Retro Renegades Tuesday night, 7 p.m. We have the next podcast, 8 p.m. prime time. Yes, it's very dirty. We go all over the place, but
It's
at the
awesome,
end of the
though.
day, we all love each other, and that's what matters. Breakfast of Boom, Friday, 10 a.m. Once again, not quite as dirty, very, very politically correct, but also we say some wild stuff. I'm just saying. So
I'll take a word from Boom. It's thought provoking, right?
Yes.
Yep.
That is exactly what it is. But I mean, it's been a pleasure, and I hope it's the Super Bowl, so I wasn't expecting a lot of people be here. I was expecting more than just a few, but at the end of the day, hopefully it helps you, because you've earned it. I mean, you deserve it. I haven't done anything. I haven't done anything with myself, and that's for a reason, because I actually like, doing things like this, and I think we had a amazing conversation.
Absolutely, Crispy, and I want to thank you for coming on here, for accepting the invite, brother. I truly appreciate it. It's been an honor to ask you these questions, and like I told you before, brother, this podcast is kind of more for me, man, to get to know you, and I think that I know you a heck of a lot better, man, now after our conversation. And yeah, and don't worry about that, man. I wasn't even thinking about numbers. I'm not thinking about that, brother.
I'll tell you right now, it's always the crispy truth. It's my truth. I stick to that.
Absolutely, man. So just before we wrap it up, what are you going to be playing, man? What are you going to be playing this week? Anything on that you're looking forward to?
I'm debating whether to purchase Dying Light 2 right now.
I picked it up.
I'm having the Series X specs are not doing it for me.
Okay.
I have a Series X. That's all I have. I mean, I have a 1X Scorpio, but that thing's been sitting there for a long time, because the Series X is amazing, but I don't know. They can do better. They can. Yeah. Techland can do better. And I don't want to ruin it for myself, because I've ruined it for myself with CD Projekt Red. I don't want to do that with Techland, because I know they can do better. And I played Dying Light 1, and they did better after, and I kind of lost my luster. So I'm holding out a little longer, but I am itching to do some parkour and kick some people in the fucking head. I'm just saying.
For sure, brother. For sure. Take out some of that frustration. That sounds great, dude. Just, you know what my advice would be? Just wait then, brother. There's nothing wrong with that. There's plenty of games to play, plenty to hold us over. 1970 Chrome Pony, thank you. Good show, guys. Wish you all growth on this channel. I appreciate that, brother. Tune in. Working on bringing in my next guest. Probably hoping that it's Mr. Boomstick. Crispy, it's been a pleasure, brother. Thank you so much. I hope you have a great, productive week. Something I like to tell everybody before we go. I wish you nothing, and your family and your loved ones, nothing but health in this year and moving forward. Wish you nothing but success, brother. And just know that when you do decide to take the plunge and start your own podcast and stuff like that, if you ever need a fill-in, you can call me in, man. I really appreciate your time. And yeah, guys, thank you so much for tuning into episode 4. And until next one, peace.
Laters.